Hey, Marcus, I see you're here. I see Craig's here. Marcus, is everything good on your end?
Hear me well?
What'd you say?
Hello, sir.
Craig, can you hear Marcus very well, or is he very quiet?
I thought I heard him like he was 100 miles away.
Hey guys, I don't hear anybody.
Marcus, you can't hear us.
Okay, now I can
Yeah,
hear.
I hear you, Marcus, but you sound quite faint.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little more. Getting there.
Okay.
Is there something sitting on top of your microphone, maybe?
It's possible. I'm still sounding muted.
A little bit.
But what about now? Still. Okay.
It's not ideal.
Interesting. Let's see. Test speaker microphone. You hear a ringtone? Speak. Okay, why is my mic not? Now testing microphone 2. Let's try this. Any better?
Yeah,
Yep.
That was actually much better.
Okay.
Craig, did you think so too?
Yes, for sure.
Great. Okay, good. Oh, Chuck's here. Chuck, you should be able to.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Hi, Chuck.
Hi, I'm in a different place. How are you, Marcus?
I'm fine, sir. Still here.
Good, good. Are we ready to, I don't know how many are people here at this point?
Yeah, our team is, I believe our team is here.
Yeah, maybe we should call a meeting to order. Will, is everybody, we have about 60 people, it looks like.
No time like the present.
I agree with what Craig said.
Okay.
If we ever wanted to
Okay.
end the meeting, we have to start it.
Why don't we start it up? Yeah. I want to welcome everyone to the December meeting of Community Board 8's Transportation Committee. I'm Chuck Warren, co-chair, and Craig Lader, my other co-chair. And we have a number of items on our agenda today. And the first is the New York City Transit presentation about the 68th Street Subway Station ADA project. And we're happy to have Marcus Book, who is our liaison from New York City Transit. And Marcus, welcome. And why don't you go ahead with your presentation?
Okay, Chuck, thank you. Richard, can you just let me hear your voice, Richard Weatherby?
Rich, you'll just have to unmute.
Okay, thanks very much. It was preventing me. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you were there and I can hear you. Okay. Okay, good. So good evening, Community Board 8. So we're really glad to be with you again. And we're especially excited tonight to provide you with an update on a long-awaited ADA project in your district, the 68th Street Hunter College ADA project. As many of you are aware, when we first presented this project back in 2012, we received significant input, and I would say / opposition from stakeholders regarding a proposed new stairway on the southeast corner of East 69th Street. So in response to that feedback and a fairly long negotiation process with affected stakeholders, including CUNY, New York City Transit is now prepared to present a plan that we believe will address the concerns of our stakeholders, as well as some significant engineering challenges that we encountered with the project and its direct impacts on our most affected stakeholders. So tonight, what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to my colleagues who will be presenting and answering your questions tonight. You know who I am, Marcus Book, New York City Transit's Government Community Relations. With us is Richard Weatherby, with our environmental team, who will go through the presentation with you. And we also have, in addition to Richard, our design team headed up by Nandini Sengupta and Jeremy Parnes from our service planning division. So I will now just ask everyone, as always, to hold your questions until the end of the presentation, and then we'll be happy to address those questions at that time. So now I'll introduce formally Richard Weatherby to go through the presentation. He will need to screen sharing rights, Will.
Yeah, he has it. And just really quickly before you get started, I want to give everybody, if it's your first time at one of our meetings, you'll notice that you're muted. You're not able to unmute yourself. Whenever Marcus and his team is done with the presentation, we'll take questions through the use of the raise hand feature. You'll find that through opening the participants menu at the bottom of your screen. That menu, it says participants, and it has a little number next to it. Like right now it says 80. And you open that, a box will pop up and you'll see a hand button that says raise hand. Click that. Don't just wave at us. There's a lot of people in the meeting. We will not see you. So you have to find the participants button, use the raise hand button if you want to be called on. The chat is just for tech support. No questions will be taken through the chat. Marcus, if Craig and Chuck are ready for you, you can go ahead and go, and the screen share should be available for Rich.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Marcus.
Okay, Richard.
And
Okay, Richard, you're on.
Okay, I've put the presentation up. Can everybody see that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. And so thanks very much, Marcus. I'm Rich Weatherby. And before I get into the slide deck and present the project in a little bit more detail, I wanted to provide a little bit of background on the project, just to get us all kind of current on what the status is. Back in February of 2016, MTA prepared an environmental assessment for this project that was submitted to the Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, and they approved the project on July 28th, 2016, when they issued their finding of no significant impact. Since that time, the MTA is engaged in property negotiations and has advanced the engineering design work. But as Marcus alluded to, during that design work, it was determined that there were some significant structural modifications that would be required to install an elevator within the footprint of the Hunter College East building. And that's the building located on the southeast corner of 68th and Lexington. Those structural modifications included resupporting the structure, redirecting loads, and changing a floor elevation. So as a result of those structural engineering challenges, the MTA looked for an alternative site that could accomplish the project goals. And they determined that by relocating the street stair and elevator improvements from the southeast corner to the northeast corner at the intersection of 68th and Lexington Avenue, that they could avoid those structural concerns. So in the new proposed design, the stairs on the southeast corner of 68th Street, which is located within CUNY property, that would remain unchanged. However, the MTA would very much like to see those stairs widened and continues to have a dialogue and discussions with CUNY to see if that can be accomplished. So with the exception of that relocated elevator and the elimination of the widening of the stairs within the Hunter College East building footprint, the project's basically unchanged, principally unchanged from what was proposed in 2016. MTA is currently reevaluating the project with these proposed modifications in accordance with the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and they expect to submit the reevaluation to the FTA for their review later this month. Results of the reevaluation indicate that the proposed modifications to the approved project do not result in new or more significant impacts than those that were identified in the 2016 environmental assessment. So with that, why don't we go into the slide deck and I can show what I was describing in a little bit more detail. All right, so here we are. This is a street level plan that illustrates the existing conditions. Can everyone see my cursor? Okay, for orientation purposes, the north is to the right side of the page. And so we have Lexington Avenue here running through the center of the page. 69th is here towards the right, 68th Street is to the left. This sheet presents the plan as approved in 2016. What we're looking at here is a new street stair at 69th Street west of Lexington Avenue, a new mid-block entrance stair on the east side of Lexington Avenue between 68th and 69th Streets. That would be housed within commercial space in the Imperial House. A reconstructed stair here on the northwest corner of 68th and Lexington Avenue. A reconfigured and widened stair here on the northeast corner of 68th and Lexington. And then here within the Hunter College East building, the footprint of it, these stairs were proposed to be widened and reconfigured, and a new elevator that would take passengers from the street level down to the mezzanine would be constructed again within that building footprint. So the new proposed design retains many of the original project's features, principally the entry on 69th Street west of Lexington Avenue, the mid-block entrance in the Imperial House, the reconstructed northwest stairs, those all remain unchanged. As we look to the east side of 68th Street, or to 68th Street on the east side of Lexington Avenue, we see there's some modifications here. The stair and elevator that were proposed within the footprint of the Hunter College East building would not be constructed. Instead, the elevator would be relocated here to the north side of the street, and it would be constructed within a curb bump out that would extend the sidewalk into what's currently the parking lane here on the north side of 68th Street. Additionally, the current stair that's on the northeast corner of 68th and Lexington Avenue would be relocated a little further south than what was originally proposed. And what I'm going to do here is I'll go to the next slide, and this really helps to illustrate it. As we can see, the existing conditions, the design from 2016 here in the middle panel, and the new design all side by side. As you can see, the reconstructed stair on the northwest corner remains unchanged from what was originally proposed back in 2016. We can see that the northeast stair, the stair here at the northeast intersection, was originally proposed to be relocated further east and reorientated, so the entrance and exit would come from the eastern side. That remains the same. However, the stair is now widened and it shifted a little bit further south than what was originally proposed so that it fits in that curb bump out. Lastly, the proposed modifications to the stairs within the Hunter College building would not be made, and the elevator location would be relocated here to the north side of the street. This slide here illustrates the existing conditions, some photographs of the existing conditions on 68th and Lexington, some renderings of what was proposed from 2016, and then what we anticipate the new design to look like. So as you can see here in this upper left image, the stair entry to the mezzanine is located in is recessed within the building footprint of Hunter College. That stair was proposed to be widened and the passenger elevator constructed there. The new design presents the elevator here within that curb bulb out that's been constructed in the parking lane, with the entry stair located a little bit further east, as you can see here. And that would replace this stair here located right at the corner that enters, provides access right onto Lexington Avenue. In addition to the street level changes, there's a couple of modifications to the mezzanine at 68th Street. And so these graphics are also orientated where north is to the right. So you have Lexington Avenue sort of over the mezzanine here, 68th Street over the mezzanine through the center portion here. As you can see in the original plan, there were modifications in the northwestern portion of the mezzanine associated with that reconstructed stair. There was rehabilitation of the stairs from the mezzanine down to the platforms for both the southbound and the northbound sides. And then we have elevators that take you from the mezzanine down to the platform level for both sides. That work that was proposed in 2016 remains unchanged with the new design. Really, the focus of the new design would be here in the northeastern portion of the mezzanine, where there would be some reconfiguration to accommodate those new stairs and the elevator here within that bulb out that would be on the street level above. The work that was proposed within the Hunter College footprint would not be constructed. For the new entries on 69th Street and in the mid-block within the Imperial House, there would be no changes with this proposed design change for the elevator. They remain the same as what was presented in 2016. Similarly, at the platform level, access right now is presently afforded through stairs that take you from the 68th Street mezzanine down to the platform level, both the southbound and the northbound. As was presented in 2016, there are no changes. So you'd still have the access from 69th Street on the west side of Lexington, bringing you to the southbound platform. The existing stairs would be rehabilitated and the new elevator placed from the mezzanine down to the southbound platform. Similar modifications would be made to the northbound platform, as well as that mid-block entrance. But those are unchanged from what was presented in 2016. And so here, just to recap, is a summary of what was presented in 2016 and what's changed now in the new design. As I indicated, the entrance on 69th Street west of Lexington Avenue is unchanged from what was previously presented. Similarly, the mid-block entrance located within the Imperial House, that's unchanged. And as a result of the efforts of the MTA to secure that property since this was originally proposed in 2016, that's allowed them to eliminate any potential consideration of an entrance at 69th Street east of Lexington. That was something that had been contemplated back then, but that's no longer under consideration and will not be constructed. At the Hunter College East footprint building, as we talked about, we originally were planning to widen those stairs. That work would not be done, but we would continue to work with CUNY to see if that can be performed separate from this project. Additionally, the elevator that was proposed to be located within that footprint would be relocated to the north side of the street. Also on the northeast corner of 68th and Lexington, we talked about the stair that presently exits right onto Lexington Avenue. As proposed in 2016, it's going to be relocated. It's just going to be slightly wider than what was proposed. And it's also going to be located a little bit further south than the original location, which will take it off the Imperial House building. On the northwest corner, those stairs will still be rehabilitated as was proposed in 2016. The only difference or distinction I want to make here is that the construction, that work of rehabilitating the stairs would be performed during phase 1 of the construction period rather than in phase 2. And then lastly, the connection work between the mezzanine and the platform level, the elevators and the stair rehabilitation that was proposed in 2016 is unchanged now in the new plan. So the next steps for the MTA at this point are to complete the proposed design for the elevator at that new location on the northeast corner of 68th and Lexington. The MTA is working with agencies such as the New York City Department of Transportation and Federal Transit Administration to obtain approvals. Once those approvals are in place, that will allow for the construction contract to be let to a design build contractor and construction to be initiated. As we look at the next slide, we have a schedule that illustrates the principal project components. It may be a little difficult to see, but it's a 36-month overall construction schedule. It's anticipated that the construction contract would be awarded in late June of 2021. And I want to just call your attention to a couple items here. The more intensive street level construction work is anticipated to be performed over about a 22-month period that would begin October of 2021 and wrap up on July of 2023. After that, much of the work would be done basically within the station itself. It's going to be work associated with the elevator machinery and equipment, the testing and commissioning of that equipment. So you really wouldn't have much of a on-street presence during that portion of the construction phase. And so with that, I'm going to wrap up the presentation, and Marcus, I'll turn it back over to you.
Marcus, you just have to.
Thank you, Rich. Well, I think that at this point, we would turn it back to Chuck to do the Q&A.
Right.
That's the way you handle it?
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so the way we normally do things here is that we hear from the public first, and those members of the public who would like to ask questions on this, please, as Will said, indicate on the bottom, there's the raise hand function, and raise your hand, and we'll call on you as we see your hands. You see hands, Will?
I do. So you want to start with the public first and then
Yes,
go to
public first. Yep.
So you have Judy Schneider from the public.
Okay. Judy, why don't we unmute Judy?
I have two questions. What is the size, what is the size of the elevator? And I'm assuming that it will be ADA accessible, and you will be able to get a wheelchair in there without a problem. That's question one.
Nandini, Will, can you unmute Nandini, please?
Yeah.
Or Rich, I don't know who wants to take that question.
Yes, I certainly, to answer the latter question, the elevator will be ADA compliant. That's the intent, is to provide a path of travel from the street level all the way down to the platform level, both northbound and southbound platforms, in accordance with the ADA. I believe, Nandini, are you unmuted at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you want to speak to the dimensions of the elevator?
Yes. Dimension will be about 8 feet by 10 feet. And it will be ADA compliant. It's a pass-through elevator.
Okay.
And it will accommodate a wheelchair. It'll definitely accommodate a wheelchair down to the platform level.
Thank you. And my second question is about the stair. You said on the original location in the southeast corner, that would be done separately from this project. Does that mean that Hunter would be paying for that, or would that be part of the MTA contract to widen that stair or correct that stair?
So I think right now that would be separate from this project. I don't know that the funding for that work has been determined between the MTA and CUNY, but that's I think a part of an ongoing discussion between those two parties.
Maybe you can get back to us about it, because we've been hearing about that corner for however many years this has been going on. So I don't mean next month, but whenever you have an answer to that question, maybe you can get back to the chairs and let them know how that's being handled.
Understood.
Thank you.
Is there any other public members of the public that want to speak?
No. Everyone else is either board member or public member.
Okay. I see Lori Boris. Why don't we unmute Lori?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello, thank you very much for this presentation. And I just want to be clear on the number of elevators that will exist when the project is completed. How many elevators will be servicing each side? You know, I know sometimes elevators service both sides, and I can't picture in my mind the station at the moment, but so that's my question, is how many elevators will there be?
There's one elevator which will be from the street to the mezzanine, and then there will be two other elevators, one from the mezzanine to the northbound platform, and the other one will be from the mezzanine to the southbound platform. So 3 elevators altogether.
Okay, and so, and the one that services both, the third one services both, is that correct?
Both means there will be one street to mezzanine elevator. The street elevator which you're seeing on the, maybe you can go back to the plan, the mezzanine plan.
Yes.
Okay, so you see there's, if I go to the plan B, you can see there's one which is from street to the mezzanine, and then 2 other elevators, each going to the northbound, and the other one goes to the southbound platform.
Okay, all right, thank you very much. I'm concerned about backup in case, you know, the elevators go down, so that seems to be okay. Good, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
I guess I see Trisha Shimamura is next. Can we unmute Trisha?
Thanks, Chuck. I'm sorry if I missed this at the beginning, but I'm confused for why the change in the first place. Can you just clarify why it seemed that you guys had a good plan to widen the staircase underneath that mezzanine, and it was attached to Hunter, and so people getting out of the elevator would automatically have some shelter if it was raining. I'm just confused as to why the change at all.
Sure. I think the change is really driven by some engineering challenges that were determined based upon the design development. So the Hunter College building, as you noted, sits over top that stairway, and in order to get the elevations to match, because we're making that stair an ADA compliant stair, there would be some fairly significant structural concerns associated with that building that would come into play as you were reconstructing those stairs and by installing the elevator. And so as a result of that, it's been determined that relocating the elevator outside of that, outside of the footprint of the building would eliminate that potential for those structural concerns.
Okay, and then the other piece of this is, I guess, 2 connected questions. You mentioned that the south side sidewalk of East 69th Street would no longer be touched or adjusted. Can you show where that is again on a map?
Oh, sure. Bear with me for just a moment. I'll get to the direction. And so what we were referring to there was that in the original plan was to construct an entry here at 69th Street on the west side of Lexington Avenue, and to construct the mid-block entrance here within the footprint of the Imperial House. As a fallback, there was an alternate plan that had been contemplated to install a stair here on the east side of Lexington Avenue at 69th Street. And we received a lot of feedback from the community on that particular location, which is why the preference was to construct it here within the Imperial House. Because the MTA was able to successfully gain access to that property, that's eliminated any need or consideration of an entry here at 69th Street on the east side of Lexington.
Okay, and thank you. And my last question is just about, you had mentioned being in negotiation or being in discussion with Hunter about widening the staircase on the southeast corner of 68th Street. I guess I'm confused as to why that's not a part of this as well, and why this isn't just included in the project. And I guess maybe the bigger question is like, who's funding this? Is this all coming from, I forget where the funding is coming from for this project.
Sure.
Well, this is Marcus again. Over these many years, we've been in constant discussion and negotiation with CUNY on the way to do that. Right now, we have not been able to come to an agreement about how that will be done and incorporate the structural challenges that are involved. And we're to deal with the capacity is part of the reason. In addition to the elevator, we're adding additional stairwells to the station to address the capacity issue. But we'll keep you up to date on those discussions with CUNY regarding that southeast stairwell.
I mean, I guess my response to that is I would like our community to be included in those discussions instead of just being updated on them. And if we could, I mean, it seems to me like the easiest and most like common sense thing to do is that if we're talking about increasing accessibility and capacity, that we do all this construction at one time. And so it makes no sense to me to like continue to move forward with this project, but not widen those stairs at the same time, if that makes, if I'm making sense here. So I guess I would like to know whatever we can do to encourage the widening of that staircase. I understand the engineering issues with the elevator, but if we can do more to push for the widening of that staircase, it seems like if we're gonna commit to accessibility, we should commit to accessibility and make sure that all these entrances are you know, as accessible as possible and can take as much capacity as possible.
Understood.
Okay. Next,
Chuck,
Valerie.
you have a person from the public who's raised their hand. Do you want to?
Sure. Who's that then?
Rita Saulfield. Rita, you'll get a message at the bottom of your screen.
Okay, please unmute Rita. Yeah.
It's not Rita, it's Charles Southfield, but
Charles. Okay. So, okay, Charles.
yeah, the stairway that's being relocated on the on the northeast corner. Where is that located in relationship to the garage that opens up on 68th Street?
Sure.
It is before the garage. It's between the garage and Lexington Avenue.
So it will not obstruct the.
No. It won't obstruct the entrance to the garage. No.
Can you tell me approximately how many feet it is away from the curb cut?
I would say about 8 to 10 feet away.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other public hands?
No, not at this time.
Okay, why don't we go to Valerie Mason then and unmute Valerie.
Hi, thank you very much. A couple of questions. When we're looking at this new rendition in Plan B of the elevator, it looks like, where does that elevator open onto the sidewalk? Is it between the stairwell and the elevator, or is it right off the corner?
No, it's between the stairwell and the elevator.
Well, can I ask you about that? Isn't that going to be hard to navigate if you're in a wheelchair? Wouldn't it be easier to be able to access that right off the crosswalk?
No, we believe that this is better because it's away from the crowd crossing the street. There's enough space between the elevator and the stairway, about, I would say, 12 feet. So it's a lot of space in between.
Okay, who's going to be responsible? Are you going to use a snow melt system when you do this so that we don't have to, if people are going to be in wheelchairs and trying to get into the subway, that they were not going to have to rely on somebody coming out and cleaning in between that area between the stairwell and the elevator there?
Transit
usually, Marcus, do you want to answer this?
I think, Valerie, I don't believe, and the design team can tell me if I'm wrong, I don't believe we're using a snow melt operation for this. We will handle this elevator as we handle all elevators throughout the system. Meaning someone will.
I hope not.
Sure, it's clean.
Sorry, I had to. You gave me that softball, Marcus. I had to take.
That's one complaint I haven't gotten yet about snow preventing access to an elevator.
Well, I asked for the snow melt when we were doing the 72nd Street entrances on 2nd Avenue subway. And I think, it's been okay, but I just think when we're talking about, only one elevator and we're, in this project at this point, it's something to consider. The second thing is in terms of, I think I understand what you're saying about the crosswalk. I just wonder what the turnaround radius is between coming out of that elevator and then the back up to the stairwell. And then my other question is, how wide is that? I understand you're going to build out into the street, but to the gentleman's point about the garage, aren't you going to have a lot of people that may be coming out and walking into a car that's turning into a garage? I mean, there's a lot of people that come out of that station, and the dispersing onto the corner with everybody being able to go in different directions, and there's always a log jam there. I'm just wondering about you having a face going east, and that sidewalk is not that wide, and I don't think it's even going to be that much wider with you even expanding the sidewalk. So I'm wondering about crowd there.
We do have safe distance between the stair and the garage, as I mentioned, about 10 feet.
Well, 10 feet isn't really a lot of feet when you measure how many people come out of that stairwell even now. And it's not that wide.
Jeremy Parnes. Jeremy, do you want to, do you have any comment on that? Jeremy Parnes, if you could.
Sure, I am unmuting. The one thing to consider is that with the addition of the two new northern stairs, one in the Imperial House and one on the southwest corner of 69th and Lex, those are going to divert a lot of people who currently use this stair away from this stair. So there will be people using the stair, definitely, but the hope and intent is that they will be pulled away. Many people will be pulled away to the new entrances.
Okay, I have just two more questions on the northwest stairwell. How much? You didn't say anything about widening the sidewalk there. Are you widening the stairs? Because again, it's a really narrow sidewalk, and if you're crossing there, there's always a smash of people coming up and then trying to go through using the sidewalk.
The northwest stair is not. Stair S3 on the northwest corner is not being widened. It's the same width, and the sidewalk is not being widened. It's unchanged.
Okay, so I don't understand then the gentleman's point that the people are going to be dispersed, because it wouldn't be any more people that could go through that stairwell.
No, we are talking about the new stair on 69th Street and the Imperial House stair. So people from the platform can exit on the 69th Street and through mid-block exit. So that's why the passenger count on this stair will be a little less.
All right.
There are two more extra stairs.
Last question. This is about money. When this project was first proposed in 2012, it was costing what? And so how much is it going to cost now? And is this project really provided for in the cap budget coming forward?
Yes, it's provided in the current capital plan, and I'll have to get back to you on exact costs.
And the differential between what it was going to cost 8 years ago and how much it's going to cost us now?
Sure, Valerie. No problem.
I'm sure it'll be less.
Thanks very much.
You're very welcome.
Thanks.
Well,
Okay, Jordan Woke is next. Can we unmute Jordan?
Hi, I think I have 4 items. The first is, I think that there's an elevator at the southwest corner of 68th Street and Lexington Avenue, which provides access from street level to the mezzanine. Please correct me if I'm wrong.
No, there's no elevator at the southwest corner.
Are you absolutely certain that it's not in the Hunter building? Okay, if you say there is no elevator there, then that's fine. I've seen one, But
I don't know, Jordan,
Okay.
maybe it goes into Hunter's building, but we don't have one.
okay, but it is access from street level to mezzanine. Number two, a comment was made that the new elevator will be something like pass through. And my understanding is that if you enter with a wheelchair to get out, you do not need to back out or you do not need to turn around. That's part of the idea of the elevator on the northeast corner. Is that accurate?
Yes,
Okay, now going to S6, where we are now, if I'm entering and I get to the bottom of the stairs, is there a fare barrier there?
yes,
And can I then go, can I get to the southbound side by, let's say, turning left and going back?
can you go to the platform level plan? The platform level plan. Okay, so see the stair, we are coming down
Yeah,
and then there are fare array and then you go down to the platform level.
where is the mezzanine there?
This is the mezzanine. When you come down one slide down, you'll have a mezzanine, and then you take another stair down to the platform.
So it provides access only to the northbound, to and from the northbound, is that correct?
That's right. And then the
there
other,
there is a mezzanine, but apparently this is not going to connect to the existing mezzanine. Pity. A similar question on the elevator on the southwest corner of 69th Street. I gather there is a fare barrier somewhere, possibly on a mezzanine.
yes, there's no elevator. There's a stair, and then there's a fare barrier, and then another flight of stairs take you down to the platform level.
Okay, so if you arrive southbound and you want to come up inside the Imperial building, you have to go to the mezzanine at 68th Street, come upstairs, go across, go down to the platform on the northbound, and then climb up. It would be a little bit awkward to do that.
I didn't get your question. Can you please repeat?
So if you come on the southbound and you want to use the Imperial building, what you need to do is go to the south end of the southbound platform, climb up to the mezzanine, possibly P3 or something like that. Then you can cross from there to P4, go downstairs to the northbound lane, and then climb all the way up at P5. That's the route one would have to take. Is that accurate?
Yes, but why would you want to
Yes,
go
Jordan,
to
I
that?
can't imagine anyone wanting to do that. You can just exit the station at 68th Street and just walk half a block to the location.
Okay, and the same thing for 69th Street. If you came on the northbound, there's no reason you'd want to get to the 69th Street stairs. Okay. Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jordan. Peter Borak, our other public member. Peter, unmute Peter, please.
Great, thanks so much. I just, some of you know, I've talked before. My day job, I'm a data attorney, I actually represent MTA real estate in a lot of development projects like this. So I'm not particularly working on this one, but I do know this one is particularly complicated, and I think the MTA is actually doing a great job, especially, I think dealing with CUNY has been difficult. So I obviously asking some good questions, but I think the MTA team here that's here today and the other folks in the real estate department are doing a great job. So I just wanted to kind of acknowledge that this is not an easy project. So that's it.
Thank you. Marco Tamayo, can we unmute Marco?
Oh, thank you. First, I had to say thank you so much for the presentation. I think it's a good idea to have an entrance, an extra entrances to the subway. I think in the mid-block also is a very good idea. And the proposal that you did before and it was approved, I think is an excellent idea. I don't know where you're coming from. They saying that there is a structural damage. Do you have a good structural engineer to make a good assessment of that? Because I don't think in New York present a solution. I know very well that entrance, by the way. So I was coming in and out, and the stairs on what they propose, the elevator are wider already. It's good, never have a problem. So my concern is you want to prefer to put this bulky, ugly glass outside rather to put inside of the premises, and I think it makes more sense. If you put this bulky next to the entrance stairs, well, usually probably I should the people from the MTA, they should visit all these projects that you have like that. That is collection of garbage, and this is people urinate outside. So it's not very smart idea to put it on the sidewalk. And that sidewalk, Valerie, she's right. Yeah, this is a narrow sidewalk. So you wanted to strangulate the pedestrian circulation. From the aesthetical point of view, for the streetscape, it makes no sense at all. And I think that your original proposal inside of the Hunter College premises, it makes a lot of sense. And if you find a challenges of the structural part, please hire, I mean, spend more money, but hire a proper structural engineer that give it a solution. There are plenty in New York City capable to do this kind of job.
Thank you, sir. It's not just a structural challenge. It's also managing to discuss and do this in a way that's suitable to both the MTA and CUNY, which is a whole different ballgame. We will continue to update you on the stair widening on that corner, but this is definitely something that will get this project moving.
But to put the
I understand your point. I understand your point.
Is benefit for the students, is benefit for them. The most people that benefit in that part is the students. And CUNY cannot object something that is benefit for them. On the contrary, it should applaud, it should say, look, you're welcome to this place. And you make nicer, and I think your proposal that you did before, I applaud that. But what you're coming with this change, I think is wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. Felice Farber is next. Can we unmute Felice?
Thanks. Just a couple of questions. So you're building an entirely new bus bulb or bump out to fit this in. So that, as I understand it, the amount of pedestrian space remains unchanged from what it is now. Is that correct?
On the sidewalk of 68th Street, the north sidewalk?
Yes.
It would actually increase a little bit relative to what's currently there. And let's see if I can get to the slide just to help to illustrate that point. So the existing condition is here. We see the street side, this exit onto Lexington Avenue here. What was originally proposed was to widen that, but just to offset it, move it further east. With the widening of the sidewalk by constructing that curb bump out, there's actually going to be a little bit more sidewalk for pedestrians to walk on this side of the street.
And I'm not familiar with what the parking regulations are right over there. So how many parking spaces are removed?
Sure. So that this area right here, this parking lane is right now regulated so that it's only authorized parking for police department vehicles. We estimate that 3 to 4 of those parking spaces would be taken by this, but our analysis shows that there are other locations for the police department to park their vehicle in the general vicinity.
Yeah, they can park wherever they want.
That's true.
And when you take the elevator down, is there currently a fare barrier over there, or will you have to construct a new fare barrier by where the elevator lands you?
No, it'll be the existing fare barrier,
which is mid-platform.
Go into the mezzanine. Yeah, it'll go through the existing fare barrier and then take the platform, mezzanine to platform elevator to go down to the platform level.
Okay, so you don't have to walk from and be in a wheelchair to go from one end of the platform to the other to get to a fare barrier. Okay.
No.
And then my final question. So the MTA's Eye on the Future now lists this project at over $50 million. So it's a substantial design build project. The MTA's fiscal situation has been well documented in the newspaper. With the capital program currently on hold, is June 2021 a realistic time period? Do you see other issues in moving this forward to construction within that time frame?
No, we don't, because this is part of the previous capital plan. The capital plan that's on hold is the 2025, I believe.
Okay, yeah, so I thought most of the capital projects weren't moving forward, but this is in the last capital plan.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Michelle Birnbaum is next. Can we unmute Michelle?
Thank you. This was a very good presentation, easy to understand, so I thank you for that. 3 points. On 68th Street going east, that is a crosstown bus street, as you well know. The bump out will be just opposite the bus stop on the southeast corner. And on that street, traditionally, east of the bus stop, it is traditionally lined with fruit vendors. They themselves are on the sidewalk, but their inventory trucks are more often than not parked right near their stand in the street. Given that that street will now be even more narrow because of the bump out, I'm just asking that you alert, the precinct. They're only on 68th Street, but they're really not in the habit of enforcing those kind of laws. But with this, I really think that the alert should come from you rather than the public complaining about it, because it's going to be very, very important to keep that street free. There's no parking on that south side, but it's going to be very, very important to keep that lane open, because it's a bus lane. Cars will be trying to pass the stop bus. And of course, the street is narrower. So that's one thing I ask that you actually notify them. They're sort of sick of hearing from us. The second thing is, and then I have 3 things. The second thing is, will there be any disruption in train service during all this construction?
Richard, do you want to answer that question?
So I wouldn't anticipate that there would be any significant train disruption during construction. But I'm sure that at some points, as we can see, the original project did include some work at the platform level, making improvements to the platform edges and things of that nature. Typically that work is done off hours, nights, weekends, that sort of thing. If that work did require there to be some modification to the service, that would be advertised well in advance of when that would be required. But
so at this moment, you don't necessarily anticipate disruption, but we could have disruption. Okay, that's fair. Okay, the third thing is, if you go back to the west side of 69th and Lex, if you have the slide that shows that, would it have been possible, or did you look into putting that staircase inside the Thomas Hunter Hall building?
And Dini, did we discuss that? I think we
No, that was never discussed. That was never requested either.
Well, I'd like to request it. It just seems to me that if you could do that, because 69th west of Lexington, there are also residences, you know, and you're right across the street from residential building. I can't totally visualize the street, but I'm pretty sure that going west, there are residential buildings there. And it would really be are you constructing that bump out specifically for those new widened stairs?
Yes.
So wouldn't it be better to put that staircase inside the building, not have to have the bump out?
Michelle, I can just say right off the top that, you know, negotiating with CUNY has been an interesting prospect from the beginning, but putting a subway entrance inside of a historical building is a totally different ball game. And I think that people at this stage would like to see an ADA project happen. And we will absolutely, I will take it back and make it part of a discussion, but I don't think that that's really feasible.
So not feasible because it's a historic building, or because CUNY is so difficult? Because that shouldn't be a case of the squeaky wheel getting the grease. You know, there's a whole neighborhood of stakeholders, both residential and commercial. And just because they can't make as loud a noise as this institution, really, that shouldn't be the reason for the deterrent. If you had structural issues, if the historic, you know, breaking the facade of a historic building, I would be very sensitive to that, because that's you know, preserving our historic buildings are of tremendous import to me. But you know, it shouldn't be because CUNY's hard to deal with, let's put it that way. So if nobody's looked at it, I would just ask that you do. And if in your next update to us, you can give us sort of an answer, tell us about the responses.
Sure.
Okay, terrific. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Craig,
It
later.
will be difficult for to modify a historic landmark building, and it's very old. Structurally also, it'll be very difficult. I can say that.
Yeah, okay. Well, we'll get back. Craig, I know you wanted to say something, Craig?
Yes, I had two things. First, I just wanted to thank the whole New York City Transit team for a great presentation that's very clear and easy to understand. My two questions, going back to the bump out on 68th Street, I was actually going to suggest, if it hasn't been considered, as long as it would be otherwise feasible, to move the bus stop to the southwest corner, just because this way we can hopefully avoid some of the potential congestion or issues with especially if there's a bus park. I know there's going to be more space on the other side, and there's a bus pad already in place at the current stop. But I would hope that we can consider moving it to hopefully ease some of the congestion issues that may take place.
Craig, I'm sorry, that was considered. We've been working with DOT, and I don't think that the DOT, and I won't speak for them, but I don't believe that was their preferred location, turning traffic and things. But it probably will end up there for a period of time, temporary relocation, and we'll take a look at what's going on there. But that's the location of that bus stop is something that can be considered along the way. But I don't think that was a preferable location for the bus stop as it relates to DOT. But we will constantly pay attention to that.
Right, and I can understand that from a turning. Yeah, I can understand that from a turning lane perspective. But I do have concerns about how it's going to play out on the east side of 68th Street. And then the other question I had was just going back to the new stairwells. I was wondering just how wide the stairwells are and how many turnstiles are going to be. If I understand, the turnstiles, the fare barriers are going to be at platform level. And I was just wondering how many there will be, how wide they are, and how it's going to accommodate crowds that are exiting and entering at the same time.
Jeremy?
the turnstile at the new turnstiles on 69th Street, there will be 5 of them. And the turnstile, can you go to the slides where it shows?
Is this the slide you'd like to see?
Not this one.
The platform level?
Yes. No, this one will, yeah, the platform level will also see. Yeah. So you can see there are the turnstiles here. 1. Yeah. So 4 of them on that side and the 5, I think, on the Imperial House side.
The turnstiles will either match the capacity of the stairs, or on the Uptown platform will slightly exceed the capacity of the stairs.
Very, very good. All right, thank you very much.
Lynn Strong Shinozaki is next. Can we unmute Lynn?
Lynn, you just have to confirm it on your screen. There you go.
Okay, thank you. I again want to thank the MTA for what I thought was a really clear, concise presentation. Greatly appreciated. I appreciate living on Roosevelt Island, how long some of these projects take. So I appreciate that we're moving this forward. And one of what I'd like to talk about are the issues relevant to the Hunter College. And I don't know how many of the other people here on this call actually used that stairway and used that entrance to the subway back in the day from Hunter College. And what I can speak to is that prior to 9/11, there was pretty ready access and Hunter College was pretty open. After 9/11 and some other serious issues about breaking and entering into the college, they got very challenging about letting outside people use that entrance. And I know that the Hunter College has made it extremely difficult more recently I think my understanding is that they had actually closed that entrance, and even their students were having to go outside of the school. And so I know for them, it's a real safety issue, having access into the school and around the school. And I know no one has spoken to that point to date about some of the issues with Hunter College, but I do know that that was a problem in the past. And having been somebody that had small children at one time that really appreciated having the access inside Hunter College, I do understand the difficulties that it creates for the school with having access within the school to the public. So I just wanted to talk on that point, and that I'm just really pleased to see that they are going to have an ADA elevator available after years of wishing that that could happen at that site. Thanks so much.
Sure. And a couple of people haven't talked. Have the Rita Popper next. Can we have unmute Rita?
Hi, I just have a question after going through the 2nd Avenue subway construction. What happens on 68th Street when you have construction equipment? Is there any plans for rerouting the bus, the crosstown bus?
So during construction, there will be a minimum of 1 lane on 68th Street preserved to through traffic. There are no plans at this time to reroute the crosstown bus on 68th Street.
Thank you.
Okay, and now our board chair, Alita Camp, has her hand up, and can we unmute Alita?
Thanks, Chuck. I just wanted to ask, and I'm really sorry if I missed this, why you are widening the stairs on 69th Street, because I was thinking about what Michelle had said, and if you don't use those stairs, then there's no issue, because there are already, if I count correctly, 4 staircases, which is all that we have on 86th Street, which is also an express stop. So again, if I missed it, just say I missed it, and I'll go back and listen to the tape.
No worries. Just to clarify your question, was your question pertaining to the 69th entrance here?
Yes.
So this is a new entrance. It's unchanged from what was proposed in 2016. So it's the same size and configuration as what was originally proposed back in 2016. There's no design change associated with that.
Right, but why do you feel that that's, I guess I'm just responding to Michelle asking you to put it in the building, which I could see why you wouldn't, and agree. And by the way, thank you for a very clear, detailed presentation. I was just wondering if that's even necessary at all, but you've already made that decision from a few years ago, so never mind. And thank you again for the quality of the presentation.
Does Jeremy Parnas from City Transit, did he want to say something? I don't know if I saw his hand up.
Yeah, my virtual hand and real hand were both up. I mean, I think the question was basically covered. It doesn't get to the exact points a couple of people have made in terms of street side versus inside the building. But the point, one of the points of putting additional stairs, new stairs towards the north end of the station was to spread the load, to alleviate some of the load that's currently at 68th Street and to take pressure off of those stairs there.
Okay, thank you, Jeremy. I want to move on now. I know there were a couple of people who had spoken before who still wanted to speak, but I think we've been at this for over an hour, and I'd like to move on now to our second item. And we appreciate the presentation from the New York City Transit folks. As others have said, it was very clear, and I know it's been on for a long time, and we're hoping to see this project come to fruition on the time limit that is in your chart. So thank you.
Thank you, sir. Have a great evening, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Our second item is the Roosevelt Island Bridge and bike safety issues. And this is a joint item with the Roosevelt Island Committee. And we're happy to have Lynn Strong Shinozaki here, who is I believe one of the chairs of the Roosevelt Island Committee. And Lynn brought this to our attention, and it's an important issue. And Lynn, why don't you go and please unmute Lynn, and why don't you go and explain the situation as you explained it to us?
So as clearly and concisely as I can, the Roosevelt Island Bridge is a metal bridge that there's a walkway on the bridge, but the bike path itself is on a open metal surface. And it, when wet, or it can be even not wet, a very slippery surface for people who are biking on it. And we identified it as an issue several years ago. And when we started addressing it, what we found was that the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation were not the ones that oversee the bridge. It's, I believe it's the DOT. If anybody knows better, they can clarify this for me. But it was out of the purview of the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation. And they started some conversations, and unfortunately, some other things took priority. And what really took priority was that at one point they tried to open the bridge and it got stuck. And the bridge is a critical transportation piece, particularly when they need to shut the city waterways down, particularly the side of the East River that's the closest to the east side of Manhattan. And so what they do is they open the lane and they open the Roosevelt Island Bridge for boat traffic. So it was super critical that we had a functioning, moving, and it's a bridge that raises up. And so the priority then became to fix and make sure that that part of the bridge was running and running well. And so it's my understanding that that is now. And we've also started some just general conversations with the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation in terms of doing a couple separate things that have to do with bikes. One is a bike ramp that comes down separate than the street helix. and then a bike path that's on the west side of Roosevelt Island, or I should say, I'm sorry, on the east side of Roosevelt Island, and then potentially a fully encompassing bike passageway throughout the entire island. One of the things that we ran into a problem when we were investigating that is currently beneath where the esplanade or the walkway are currently on the west side of the island is steam tunnels that create a problem with converting that directly into bike paths. And so the Roosevelt Island Operating Corporation is trying to vet out the situation of the steam tunnels, because currently they can't have something built on top of them because they're not sound. And so in part of building the structure around the island to be more sound, they have to do that first before they can address the bike lane issues and some of these other things. But we can still get the bridge fixed in the meantime, and I know that they are looking into that currently.
I don't know, is Colleen Chattergoon here? I don't know if she, oh yes, I see her. Colleen?
Hey, Chuck. Hey, Chuck, it's Colleen. So, I mean, I will have to confirm with our bridges division if we maintain that bridge. It's likely we probably do that. So let me find out. I mean, this is new to me in terms of, safety issues with the bike path, the bike path in that area. So, I mean, I think, this is something that I will raise with Borough Commissioner Pinkart tomorrow in our conference call and see, if we've looked at this in the past. And I'm not sure if we have, to be honest with you.
Okay, we should, we should, that's good of you to do that, Colleen, and we'll see. I don't know, Lynn, whether you want to, well, we'll have some further discussion. And I saw that there was a member of the public, I guess, who had his hand up. I think it was Mr. Quickler who had his hand up on this.
Yes, thank you very much, Chuck. I'm here because I'm trying to get as much support as we can to get this surface covered. I call it an industrial cheese grater. When you ride over this surface on a bike, it feels like you're being shaken to bits and your bike's going to fall apart. I'm being melodramatic, I'm sure, but when you drive over this, you get a very big rumble. And when you ride over it, it's very bad for bikes. It can be very dangerous. There are signs up there saying that it's very slippery when wet. And the reason is very simple. It's not just a simple flat surface. It's a jagged surface to the bridge. That's why cars rumble. And that's why when you ride a bike on it, it feels very, very unstable. I've fallen over twice doing it. I moved into Roosevelt Island back in July. I have been riding across the bridge for many years before that. But since I've been here, I've been talking to a lot of people and trying to get a lot of support to get this fixed. I don't think it's very hard to get fixed. I'm not a structural engineer. I'm not a DOT person. But I want to just update you all on where we've got to with the people that we've spoken to. And before I do that, first of all, a lot of people who ride bikes don't actually ride their bike across that bridge. They walk it on the walkway. It's one of those stupid things where we have great cycling in Roosevelt Island, great bike paths in Queens across there, but then you have to walk between one and the other. It's kind of stupid. Since July, I've been campaigning a lot, getting a lot of people to support this. I don't want to speak out of turn here, but I had very positive comments from the offices of both council members Kalos and Van Bramer when we asked them to support this, when all the work was being done around getting their support for the Queensborough Bridge southbound or south side bike lane. They also apparently agreed. I don't want to put words into their mouths. I've been speaking to somebody in the last few weeks at the Queens Department of Transport. I'm not going to use his name on this call now because it's not fair to him, but the last thing he said to me was that right now, this is further along than it was even 2 or 3 months ago. So apparently some people there in the Queens DOT are paying attention to this. I'm very grateful for that. I'm not an expert here, far from it, but it doesn't look like it's an expensive thing or a hard thing to get done. For those of you who live nearby, if you go to the sidewalk on that bridge, the sidewalk's covered by a very thin surface on the metal. It looks like ½ an inch of something which basically is laid down piece by piece. And again, not being an expert, I can't for the life of me imagine why something as simple as that can't be done. Not for the whole metal surface where the cars go, just for the 2 parts where the bicycles are. I know that in DOT language, it's not an official bike lane, and there's some bureaucratic issues around that. It's just because there were some bollards put up to make some space safe for people. There you go.
Yeah.
So those bollards are put up there so we can be safe riding. If you can see the surface, you may get a sense that it's not very much like a grill cover to a sewage drain, which is flat and you wouldn't get a bump with it. You might be able to see that it's very jagged, this edge, and people don't like riding across it. It's awful. So where we are is, I don't think it should be expensive. It's only about 50 yards or something on each side. So I'm hoping you guys could support us in this. I think we have support from the politicians, elected officials. I think there's some goodwill at the DOT. I just want to get this over the finishing line. Before winter would be great. I doubt it, but it would be great. So thank you for letting me talk.
This is New York City, Paul, so we'll
I know.
We'll see if we can be helpful, I'm sure. I saw that there were others who, are there any other members of the public? We have some board members who want to speak. Did you see any, Will? I didn't see any.
No. Colleen.
It's Colleen. I'm going to put my email in the chat so that Paul can send me those slides. I think that would be helpful.
Okay, good.
Thank you so much.
Peter Borak had his hand up. Peter, why don't we unmute Peter?
Yeah, thanks so much, Paul, for presenting this to us. I think this is a great idea, and I would make a motion in support of this. I would just note that Billy's not here today, I don't think, but in the past couple of meetings, oh, hey, Billy, this committee has been championing, helping to create traveling over the 59th Street Bridge, Koch Bridge, much easier for cyclists. And so it doesn't quite make sense if you're trying to go from the Upper East Side to Roosevelt Island, and now we're going to make it easier to cross into Queens from the 59th Street Bridge, but it's still very difficult to then get the final leg into Roosevelt Island because of this issue, these grates. And I've ridden over these grates before. It's extremely uncomfortable. So I think this is a great idea. It doesn't seem that expensive, and I make a motion in support of this.
All right, well, we'll get to that, Peter. Billy Freeland is next. So why don't we unmute Billy? Speaking of the devil.
Hello, I am here.
Not really. Just a figure of speech.
I hope not, Chuck. So I'll be brief. I mean, I think it's maybe been said, but in case it wasn't, my understanding of the latest from Councilmember Kalis's office is that DOT has said they're looking into what type of bike-friendly materials are needed for this sort of metal grill section of the bridge. And so I think there's definitely interest both from the council member and from DOT to do something here. So my point is also now kind of moot because Peter made it, but I was going to say I do think we should, as a committee, pass a resolution in support of both funding this type of effort and asking DOT to try to get it done as soon as possible. This is not an easy ride. I've ridden it before. It feels very treacherous and unsafe. And I think at a time that we're trying to encourage people to take alternative modes of transportation, it's particularly important. And at a time when, just to get back and forth from Roosevelt Island, it's not always so easy. I think we should be trying to improve that one bridge that does connect Roosevelt Island to Queens. So sort of just want to echo what Peter said and say we should probably take up a resolution if there's an appetite to do so.
Yeah. I think that was the sense. Thank you, Billy. Felice Farber, can we unmute Felice?
I just wanted to briefly add that I too have biked over that bridge, and it feels very unsafe. And you kind of feel like you're right in the middle of traffic, almost even with those bollards. So anything that can be done to improve the bike safety of this would be a great thing to do.
Okay. Peter, you wanted to make a motion. So if you want to raise your hand, we'll just, so Peter's made a motion. Is there a second to that motion to support this? Marco, did you want to speak or did you want to, Billy Freeland is seconding it. And do we have some people?
I just want to second the motion.
Okay, second the motion. Okay, and I saw Rebecca too, so that's seconded. Anyone else want to speak on this motion at this point? Okay, so what we'll do is we'll assume that everyone on the committee, and we have everybody's name, I think, here, on the committee is for it. if you are against it or you want to abstain, just raise your hand and we'll call on you.
Yeah. Can I just read the list and make sure that I've.
Sure, yes, absolutely, Craig. Make sure you got everybody here. There's a lot of people here.
Yeah, so I see myself, you, Chuck, Lori, Alita, Barry, Kaz, Felice, Jack, Jordan, Lowell, Lynn, Marco, Michelle, Peter, Rebecca Dangor, Rebecca Lamort, Rita, Trisha, Valerie, and Billy.
Yes.
Did you get Lynn?
And Michelle, you have Michelle, right?
I did get Lynn and I did get Michelle.
Okay. Yeah, and Rita?
Oh, yes, I do have Rita.
Okay. Okay, we have quite a crowd. Okay, so seeing no hands raised, so the motion passes unanimously. And then we thank you for bringing it before us, and it'll be coming up at the meeting in a couple of weeks.
I really appreciate your time and for you guys putting this into your schedule. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciated.
Sure. Hopefully we can get something done, and Colleen's going to talk to Mr. Pinkar. Okay.
Thank you, Colleen.
The next issue is a request for, yeah, go ahead, Craig, sorry.
I don't know if you saw the message, but Valerie had, on the prior item regarding 68th Street, possibly wants to propose a resolution. And we
okay.
Get backwards. I didn't know if we want to give her a chance to just speak.
Sure. No, if she wants to do that, we can go back and do a resolution. I'm sorry that I didn't realize that. I thought just wanted to say some stuff. Do we have? Well, I guess there's someone who want to speak on this. Paula Bernstein. It's been done, and we normally don't go back. But if Paula Bernstein wanted to say something on this, then why don't we unmute Paula just for a minute?
Hi, I'm a representative of Chef David Burke, but I'm not sure I'm on the right topic at this moment. We're talking about the bike lane on 62nd Street.
No, that's not the right topic. Sorry.
Okay.
We'll wait. If you want to do that, that'll be old business or something, We'll come on. Okay, so
go back to Valerie and
yeah. Let me go back to Valerie. Sorry we missed you, Valerie, before. I didn't realize you had it. If you want to, why don't we unmute Valerie? She wants to go back on our previous item, if she wants to offer a resolution.
Well, I just, after everyone was speaking, I just thought that there was a consensus that perhaps, it was a great presentation. And what I was thinking was perhaps we might either do a letter or a resolution to ask CUNY to be a little bit more responsive to the requests of the MTA. Trisha mentioned it and other people did as well. But either, I don't know what the group, if a letter is better or a resolution. And I wasn't sure, and Marcus isn't here anymore, whether this is CUNY buildings or is it Hunter College itself, that we should just say that the community board, that this is a great project, we want to get it done as in the best way possible. And we would like to preserve as much of the sidewalk as possible. And if since a large majority of the people that are going to be coming out of the station are going to be utilizing the college, we would hope that CUNY would be interested in working with the New York City Transit Authority. So that was really what I was going to propose. So
Valerie, can I suggest that I'd like not to do that here after they've gone from New York City Transit, and maybe we can put them on notice, and when we come to the full board, we can then, if you want to do that, we're perfectly happy to, recognize you to do something like that when we get to that item.
Okay, that sounds good.
We can take that up at the full board, because I'd like to have them be here to comment on that, because it has to do with negotiations with CUNY and stuff like that. And I don't know whether, so thanks.
Okay, my bad. I should have put something in
Thanks, Chuck. I should have put something earlier in the chat that said that that's what I was going to do.
Right. That's okay. That's all right. Me too. Do we have any, I don't know what these comments are. We have Peter Bork and Michelle Birnbaum. I don't know if I don't want to go back and discuss things that we've already discussed because we have another item that we need to take up first so what do we have here? Michelle, why don't we unmute Michelle?
I'll just be extremely brief because.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Peter.
I'll just be extremely brief. So, especially because I'm not on the full board. So I can just speak to, I really do this for a living. I negotiate these deals for the MTA with property owners. It is extremely, extremely difficult. And what I would say is that, the CUNY is not just another stakeholder here, it's their building. And so what the MTA has to do is to basically call a building owner and say, we want to build something in your building. And there are some inherent rights through some easement agreements that exist, but the right to rebuild and to change what that looks like is extremely difficult. And the MTA always has the power of eminent domain, but that's extremely complicated, extremely difficult. And so, I would just say in reality, although it might make sense from our perspective and it would be best for the MTA's perspective to put this in that hall, that's in reality, it's just not, it's not going to happen.
Okay, thanks.
It's just not. So, and that's just for everyone. Yeah.
All right. No, I appreciate that perspective, Peter. Michelle, unmute Michelle for a short comment here, and then we.
Yeah, thanks, Chuck. Yeah, as much as I raise the issue, I don't think that it's really appropriate for us to even intervene here. I wouldn't want to see a resolution, and I don't think I'd like to see it discussed at the full board. I think this is something that belongs at the committee level, and they won't necessarily, representatives won't be at the full board either. So to open this up to a full board discussion when we really haven't had a consensus in this committee, I don't think that would be a good idea. They're going to come back to us with updates. So let's try to get those updates more often and and maybe continue to raise the issue with them then. And then also at that time, hopefully we'll have answers to our questions, because while he didn't think that was a feasible thing to do on the west side of 69th, he did say that he'd bring the comments back. So I would suggest that before we take any action, letter or resolution, that we wait and hear what the response was. We'll have an opportunity. The project isn't even starting until June 21. So I don't think we should rush into a discussion or a decision here.
Okay, I don't know if Valerie, how Valerie feels about that, but that makes some sense to me, certainly. But we can. So we'll why don't we see what's right? Because actually we don't. When I think about it, we don't really have a resolution coming out on that that's going to be discussed at the full board. So normally we wouldn't have a discussion at the full board. But we'll clarify that. So thank you, Michelle. I appreciate that. Okay, item number 3, and this is a request for a temporary co-naming of 2nd Avenue between 81st and 82nd as Dairy Row. And I just want to say that normally this committee and this board really doesn't entertain requests for street renamings generally. This is a temporary one, so we said, all right, we'll put it on the agenda, but there are a lot of issues, and Craig and I, discussed this a little bit because there are a lot of issues that really are involved here, and if it's Dairy Row, are there other people involved? But we wanted to have a discussion, and I don't know if there's anyone here who wants to, from the public who have suggested this. I know there was a gentleman, Mr. Berman, who had suggested this, and I don't know if he's here and wants to speak to it.
Yes, and he's here.
Okay, and why don't we have him talk first, and then we'll see if there's any other members of the public, and I know there are members of the board who may want to speak on this too. So why don't we unmute Mr. Berman to start with, so he can make a presentation here of his thoughts.
Is this Jeremy Berman?
Yes, correct.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Berman. I live in the area. So Dairy Row was sort of an idea I pitched internally within the Four Freedoms Democratic Club as just a sort of fun idea of a way to draw publicity and bring attention to the district, especially going into the pandemic winter when small businesses are struggling. We have this one block which bizarrely has 6 different places on one block selling, you know, frozen dairy or gelato or things of that sort. So it could be sort of just a fun, kind of dumb way to drum up publicity. Somehow 3 different news articles were released about this idea, including one in the Post. And in the Post article, the reporter seems to have found out or reported that the first step in any sort of renaming would be going to Community Board 8, which I had no sense of going into this. So I think it could be a fun thing, just a temporary co-naming. You know, have a little opening ceremony, maybe get a few more news articles, get some people in the area. The ice cream gelato on the block is good. But I don't know what the procedure is, and I don't know if that's something that Community Board 8 does at all. And if it's not something Community Board 8 does, that's totally fine too. And there might be some other way to drum up publicity without an official co-naming. So I'm sort of just interested to see what the procedure is and if there's any appetite within the community board for doing anything about this.
Well, I know there's appetite for soft ice cream and gelato, but I don't know about the renaming. So we'll have to are there any other members of the public that want to speak on this issue before we get to the board? Do you see any, Will, any public?
I don't, but just to remind everybody, if you would like to speak about this, open up the participants box at the bottom of your screen, click the raise hand button, and if you're on the phone, it's *9 to raise your hand. So I do see one other member of the public has raised their hand, Patrick Boblin.
Boblin, okay. Mr. Patrick Boblin, why don't we unmute him so he can talk on this?
Hey, it's Patrick Boblin, but no points against anyone. I just wanted to clarify. I read somewhere that it was, I don't know, I didn't take the time to look everybody up, but are they mostly chains? Because I would be like not too keen on like giving publicity to just a bunch of chains rather than like local businesses. But that was just like a little needling issue that's, you know, maybe just me.
Well, maybe Jeremy, maybe you know who they are. I haven't.
Yeah, that is kind of the problem. Patrick is not wrong. It is mostly chains. The one key, so AT's appears to be a sole place that is not part of a chain, and also the Anita Del Mama Gelato, which is probably the marquee and cutesiest shop there, which would sort of vibe the best with the old-timey Dairy Row branding. It is the only location in the United States, but it began as a chain in Tel Aviv, Israel. This is their first United States location, and it probably is going to be a chain. So if that was the basis for blocking this, I can't say that's a terrible reason to do so.
Okay.
And Anita Gelato has their production facility and also has a location in Australia, or possibly multiple locations in Australia.
Well, you have to really like it if you're going to go to Australia, though. So, okay. So, anyone from the public, or is that it? Well, I didn't see anyone else. I don't think.
That's it so far.
Okay, so why don't we? Alita Camp, our board chair, wanted to be recognized on this. So, can we unmute Alita?
Thank you, Chuck. I had asked if you would consider this because the idea of a district, something that might lure people to the Upper East Side, was appealing. And I believe that there might be elected official support as well, just on the basis of some temporary, very temporary, even a day, recognition that it's worthy of a name. However, I do think that it should go all the way up to 88th Street and include UES, which is not a chain and whose proprietor, Courtney, I'm really bad at names, has been a very avid supporter of Upper East Side small businesses, the community board, the small business committee, and is just, I think we're very lucky to have her in the neighborhood. So Row is certainly better than Way. It's expansive. I think on First Avenue, there are a couple of small chains. I have to say, I am interested or I'm not sure how I feel about the idea of chains. I think maybe for now, for the pandemic, it's outweighed by the idea of bringing people to small businesses and having a reason that people could go up and traipse around and visit various places. Thanks so much, Chuck, and Craig for looking into this and considering it. It's something that's very novel. I wish I could think of a pun, but I really can't. So it's a sherbet that you'll do consideration. But that was a terrible pun. Sherbet.
Not terrible. But
thank you.
Okay.
You're lucky this last month is chair.
I didn't hear. Craig was all muffled, but it said something that got a giggle out of Chuck, so that's good enough for me.
Okay, let's see. Next is Michelle Birnbaum. Can we unmute Michelle?
Yeah, this idea, I mean, it's cute, it's charming, it's fun, it's all those things. But I think we can all imagine the slippery slope for this. Up in the 80s on 2nd, there's one street that has about 3 Mexican restaurants. You know, you can say that. You have other streets that have more than one, say, Indian restaurant. I mean, I can just see where this is going. I think there's a way for you to use that name, Dairy Row, in inviting people to go there, in referring to it when you make any public comments. But I don't think an official renaming of a street. Our committee has traditionally frowned upon that for the reasons that I'm just talking about. And I think we should maintain that tradition. I just think that a break in that at this point wouldn't be a good idea. But I do think that there's plenty of ways that you can bring crowds to any of these streets by just referring to it. Let them put signs in their windows talking about how proud they are to be part of Dairy Row, you know, cute things like that. I'm sure they can come with it, but an official designation, I'm not so sure about that. I think I would oppose that. Keep our tradition.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Trisha Shimamura is next. Trisha, can we unmute Trisha?
Hi, everybody. I think that this is an opportunity to break with tradition. With all due respect, I think that it is fun. I think that it's exciting to me to think about supporting our small businesses in some way and just calling, or not, I'm sorry, I know that's a tough term, but supporting the businesses on the East Side in some fun way. I agree, Michelle, that something that's very permanent, and I know that it's not our general way of doing things, but I'm wondering if Chuck and Craig, you might be able to let us know about other ways to recognize this in some lighter temporary fashion. I'd like to see the community board push ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit and try something a little different. And I think that this is fun. I know Barry's on the call, but somehow this reminds me of us breaking with tradition when we worked together to help the cat sanctuary on Roosevelt Island, and it was a little fun and also serious, but I don't know. There's something about this that just kind of resonates with me, and I think that I would be certainly willing to consider ways that we can support this. If it's not a resolution, maybe it's a letter. Maybe Jeremy, I kind of wonder if this is better in, or at least jointly worked with our small business committee, because I think that this could be turned into some sort of effort just to call attention to some of our businesses in the area. But I'd like to see us consider ways that we could be supportive and kind of engage in a little bit of lighter hearted efforts to support some business owners in our community.
Thank you, Tricia. Barry Schneider is next. Barry, can we unmute Barry?
Good, thank you. A couple of comments. As long as the point isn't moved yet, I would like to say I'm utterly in favor of this. Utterly in favor of it. Thank you.
UDD? Okay. Thank you, Barry. Next is Rebecca Dangor. Rebecca, can we unmute Rebecca Dangor? We have two Rebeccas here. So I want to make sure
I have two things. The first is I'd like us maybe an explanation of what temporary means, because I do like the idea. The only reason I might be personally opposed is because these stores also have some non-dairy desserts for those of us with food allergies, but that's moot. I just want to know what temporarily renaming really entails.
Yeah, I think we'd have to figure that out, Rebecca. In fact, we wouldn't, I don't think as a committee or a board, we'd entertain permanent, double signs there. But I think temporary, the question is it, is it a couple of weeks? Is it, a few months or whatever it is? That I think we'd have to work that out in some kind of a resolution.
Okay.
If I may,
your point is a good one.
The only reference I've seen to this as like doing a temporary renaming was the Bill Cunningham corner, and that lasted for a week, and it was done by mayoral decision.
Got you. Craig, I know you wanted to say something because you and I have talked about this, but I think you could just go ahead. I don't think you're muted. I don't think you're muted.
Yeah, no, I lost my connection for a moment. So I guess I want to just step aside from the chair roles so I could speak to this,
sure.
Just so I don't confuse my roles here. So as Chuck mentioned, we did speak a bunch about whether to include this and what this would mean. And I have some serious concerns here, and I appreciate Alita talking about expanding it, but then what is a row and what is whatever we want to call it, because there are still going to be businesses that are going to be excluded. Can everyone hear me? I see that my screen is frozen.
Yes, Craig, you may want to turn off your video and it'll help your audio. We could hear you.
You can hear me, okay. So as I was saying, I don't know how we can not be inclusive of other businesses, more small businesses that don't exist on that block or on side streets, such as well, you have Sedito on 78th and 1st. You have Van Leeuwen on 2nd between 84th and 85th. You have Swirls, I think it's called, on 77th and York. And then you have places that could also be considered in the dairy realm. 787 Coffee on 80th between 2nd and 3rd. Waldo and Hutchie Shop on 81st, right off of 7th. So, and if we're just talking about these types of businesses, you can make arguments that there are other, quote, rows in this community. I always reference how 3rd Avenue between 81st Street and 85th Street is like Fitness Row, but we're not calling out those businesses. So I think this is a real slippery slope. I'm all for supporting small businesses and any business, especially at this time where we're trying to just sustain street life and street activity and economic vitality. But I don't think this is the way to do it, because I fear that it's just fundamentally unfair to anyone that may be outside the realm, especially if we're trying to recognize certain businesses, and that we're going to be attracting attention to some, but not all.
Thank you, Craig. Michelle, I know why don't we unmute Michelle? She wanted to say something again on this.
Yeah, well, that's true what Craig says. It's one of my arguments too, is that you're pulling people away from other isolated ice cream and dairy shops that are located elsewhere, and you're calling the public to Dairy Row. Well, that's not really fair. Everybody's invested in their locations. So I'm not keen, but what I have a suggestion for how you can publicize this and not make it permanent. And that is, have you seen light projections on the street? In other words, it comes from a projector in one of the shops, and on the sidewalk, you can project Dairy Row. So if all of those businesses got together and they wanted to do that, I could see that happening. I don't even know that that particularly needs any approval from the DOT because there's nothing on the sidewalk. It's just a light projection that gets turned off after business hours, but that could be a way of doing it. But just think about all the ice cream shops that are located, you know, up and down all the avenues and on some side streets. And all of a sudden, Dairy Row gets all this publicity and those people lose their, you know, their business. This is, and why are we setting ourselves up for this? You know, why are we setting ourselves up to be partial? We're a community board. And unless we can find a way, something that helps everybody, which, I mean, we all know we're all for that. We're all very sympathetic to the small businesses. But this is really fundamentally not fair to give them all this excess publicity. But if they wanted to do it themselves and call themselves Dairy Row, fine. It doesn't preclude any other shops to do it. But for the community board to sanction it and pull business away from others, I don't think that's a smart way to go.
Let me ask Jordan Woke, who hasn't spoken yet, and then we'll get to Trisha and Alita. Jordan, can we unmute Jordan?
An analogous situation that I can think of is the Lower East Side art galleries. They're all together. If you go into one of them, you may be able to get a map to all the other Lower East Side galleries. So if the ice cream people or whatever it is, the dairy people want to get together, then they can join and they can have a map that they give out and anybody who wants to can join it. But I would be voting against the idea of labeling any part of the Upper East Side specifically for Dairy Row.
Thank you. Trisha, you want to comment again? We could unmute.
Yeah, I just want to mention, Jeremy, I think that a great idea is to, I mean, I think that it would be helpful to hear from the businesses or to like talk, to hear directly from them and to see if they have thoughts, even if you had, I mean, not to add more work to your plate, but even if you had other businesses in the area who said that, yes, this would be great because even if it's Dairy Row, then people are going to eat my ice cream before, or eat my pizza beforehand because it's right next to San Mateo, or they're going to go here and get my coffee afterwards because of whatever. It may be helpful to, and I think that generally, I know I feel very compelled when I see other small businesses who are coming out to this. I would also, I mean, if the feeling is that this isn't the appropriate move for this committee to do, I would still encourage you to think about talking to the Small Business Committee. And I know Valerie's here, but maybe there are other ways to support this. If a resolution's not in the cards right now for this or in this way, I think that we should be trying to support economic activity on the Upper East Side in some way. Even if this is not as I'm getting from some folks the right way to do it. So I would encourage that.
Thank you, Trisha. Alita, can we unmute Alita?
Thanks, Chuck and Will. So I understand everybody's point, but that's not to say that this wouldn't be a boon for the Upper East Side in general. And if the businesses would support each other, or even if there were something in the publicity that there are other places, just because there are places that are scattered around doesn't mean that this doesn't have a benefit in itself. I think that, and this is true for, there are art galleries on Madison. There's a museum mile, which doesn't include what was the Whitney and then the Met Breuer and possibly the Frick, yet people would go to them on Museum Mile. There's a synergy, and calling attention of ice cream, gelato, yogurt places in a small area brings people up to our neighborhood. So they stop for lunch, they go into a store, they take a bus, they visit something else, and they're here and they're spending money and they're supporting lots of businesses. These are exceptional really challenging times for everybody. And I think if there were a way of giving the publicity to the places that Craig mentioned, the places on First Avenue, that maybe there's a way to do something that could still bring people in, entice them. We have something that no other district has thought of, and that may just bring people up here to spend their money. So that's all I'll say about that. I don't own shares in any of these companies. I don't really go out for ice cream very often, but I think I really like the idea of districts or special blocks. And that's what New York has always had and been well known for: the theater district, the garment district, the dairy stuff down on the Lower East Side, the communities. And it's just really worth having something. If they don't like the gelato, they could go get yogurt. That there is some kind of energy and some kind of desire to stop into lots of places, and we don't know. So I'll stop with this and thank you for listening.
Is Colleen still here? Colleen? Did you see? Is she?
Yes, I'm still here. I'm here.
Thank you, Colleen. So what is DOT's policy for like a temporary street naming? I guess it was a question of, would they actually put up a sign for just a temporary, a short time period?
So, this is something that would have to be reviewed by your local city council member. We would not just install a sign for the sake of installing it. I don't believe that we would do that. No, we wouldn't. It goes to the same, it applies the same with a street co-naming. It would have to go through the local city council member as well, your local city council.
Even a temporary one, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess one was done, I think that Will was talking about one that was done for a week and the mayor did it.
And the mayor, yes, yeah.
Yeah. And was there a sign put up there for a week,
As what Will mentioned, I'm sure there was a sign, but it was a week's period, and after that it was removed.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any exception that will be made, because I know street co-naming and temporary is different. So I'm sure the guidelines are different as well. But in any event, it would have to go through your city council too.
Sure. Okay.
I would imagine.
As we said in the beginning, this committee and this board have not really wanted to consider street namings, certainly on a permanent basis. And the reason, Craig and I talked about this to put it on was that it's proposed for temporary basis. And I guess the question is whether I'd just ask the committee if anyone at this point wants to put forward a resolution on this.
Have Rita and Lori who have their hands up. Chuck.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that. Rita? Why don't we unmute Rita?
I didn't want to make a resolution, but I did want to propose something that within Community Board 8, that perhaps with the Chamber of Commerce, that we have a unique selling proposition, whether we have the most sushi places, to be all inclusive and make our area unique unto itself. So it takes everybody into, whether it's galleries or whatever it is, instead of one street. This is such an important time in everyone's marketing, is to get everybody inclusive. So I'd like to see a unique selling proposition, or called a USP, for Community Board 8, and then call it something, whether it's International Roll or whatever it is. But Dairy Roll doesn't really do it, doesn't do the area justice. It's just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori, Boris had her hand up. Lori?
Hi.
Yes, I have been trying to get an idea off the ground for a really long time, and that is a CB8 Zooms. And I think that we can do a really easy public affairs program, public affairs type program. And Jeremy, we could do your idea, with the Dairy Row, and talk about all of the dairy stores in our district. It's like, so we would focus on the row that you're talking about, but we would say, and of course there are a gazillion other dairy businesses, and then we could focus on museums, we could focus on like whatever sushi restaurants, whatever. And I think that would be a great way to get people talking about it, so I offer that to you if it's okay with Alita, and that's my 2 cents.
Okay. Any other anyone else on this? Okay.
No.
Okay, hearing none. So, Jeremy, there are some ideas that are proposed. I think at this point, obviously, the committee's not prepared to act on a formal resolution, but I think there's some good ideas here, actually, that were proposed, and you may want to discuss them further, particularly with Lori. And I thought there were, and Rita had a thought, and Michelle had a good thought. So maybe there's a way to do that. And if you wanted to, you can contact the board office, and they can, or they may be able to send some things in the board office that you can then get passed on to you. Thank you for coming and bringing it up. Appreciate it. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the city DOT updates. Colleen, do you have any updates there?
Hey, yeah, I do. Alita, I wanted to let you know at last month's meeting, you had mentioned, retail stores having the opportunity of putting out their merchandise, just like similar concept with the open restaurant. And we've seen that has been enacted as well. And, I'm guessing that it's working out really well, because I have not received any complaints in the community boards that I represent. So that was, a really great idea. But, in talking with some of the bids in Midtown, they mentioned that, the upscale stores would not be putting out, their merchandise out there for fear of it being stolen. So that's why, a lot of the stores that are doing this are pretty much small stores, small scale stores, like, a local Metro PCS, or, maybe a printing shop, or I'm just throwing that out there. But these are the stores that have been putting out their merchandise out there. So I just wanted to let you know your idea did come to pass, and it was, City Hall considered, that as well. The other thing, Alita, you had mentioned the kind of paint that we use in resurfacing, and I wanted to let you know that we currently do not have that high contrast marking policy for concrete roadways. That what we use is standard. So you had mentioned that, because I think the Port Authority uses something like that in their area, but we don't use that in our crosswalk markings for our roadway. And I don't know if Valerie is still there, but Valerie, I believe we got the permission to remove the benches on 72nd Street. And I think it was submitted to the contractor. I don't know if they have been removed yet, but I will follow up with my colleague. But I think there was an approval to remove the benches, just so you know. Okay.
May I just interject, Chuck? Yes. Thank you. Colleen, thank you very much for being responsive, both on the stores, which I'm glad to see, and on the street paint, which I'm not so glad about, because it is really difficult. And with bicycle riders without any kind of glow in the dark markings, with motorcycles going up bike lanes, having any advantage in the rain and in the dark would be a good thing. But I really appreciate, and I don't know if Valerie's still here, but I'll be bold and say thank you very much also for following up on what Valerie had suggested. Responsiveness communication between community boards and city agencies is really highly valued and productive. So thank you.
Thank you, Alita.
I know that there were, Colleen, I know that there are some old business that may be for you. So if you could hang in for a few minutes.
Sure, definitely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I think is there any old business here?
You have Billy and somebody named Peter Chola.
Chola, yeah. Why don't we go to Peter first?
Thank you, Craig. I appreciate that. I wanted to follow up on a couple of things that have been raised for DOT in the past. One that Rita raised in September, which I think Colleen was not at the meeting, on James Cagney's Place blocked off road because of uneven surface, which has been there now for over a year. I remember participating in a discussion at the board in September last year about this, and then Rita brought it up again in September this year, and there's still been no action on this James Cagney Place uneven pavement, which has resulted in the road bed being blocked for access, which means that bicyclists and others who are using James Cagney Place as the only east-west bike lane in this part of Upper East Side have to take their bikes onto the sidewalk, which is both a distraction for pedestrians and for the cyclists themselves. So it would be better to get that fixed, and we'd love to have an update on that. Second one, I wanted to request an update on old business was something that the Transport Committee passed back in March, and that the full committee passed in April, I believe, for the full east-west bike lanes and access through Central Park. And there was, as I understand, a interagency task force or something of this sort set up between Parks, DOT, and the Central Park Conservancy. And yet and I really appreciate that CB8 passed a resolution asking for expeditious report back on this on these ideas to improve the cross island and from east to west and west to east bike lanes. But it's been 9 months and we haven't heard anything, and would love to hear what progress has been made on that aspect of things. Thank you.
Sure. Chuck, so I believe Borough Commissioner Pinkar had a conversation with you about James Cagney.
Yes.
You had mentioned you were going to reach out to him.
I did.
Yeah.
He was going to get back to me. He was going to get back to me. He wanted to talk to Margaret Forgione and stuff, but he hasn't gotten back to me yet. I was going to call him.
I will remind him about that. The other thing is that we have had a conference call with the Conservancy and with Parks on the Central Park bike lanes and the improvements. And just to let you know, we are working on something. We are strategizing. As soon as we have a proposal, we will come to Community Boards 7 and 8 to give a presentation. We are looking at that, very carefully. And again, as soon as we have something, we'll let both community boards know, and we'll come and give a presentation.
Thank you. Thank you, Colleen. Okay, next is Josh Rubinger. Can we unmute Josh?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I wanted to bring up some old business about the bike lane. I think this is the right time. If not, feel free to cut me off. Some questions. Colleen just mentioned coming to Community Board 7 and 8 with an update. Is that regarding the overall project? And to give everyone a brief update on some of the status since our last discussion last month, we had a productive meeting with Kimberly from the DOT and several stakeholders. We walked the streets, and I don't think it's a good use of all your time or my time to relitigate the bike lanes. I mean, anyone can look and see, we've talked about this ad nauseum, that it's very problematic. So here are my questions. Procedurally, I'm new to this. What is the process of how the community board, if they agree with our stance, it seems like the majority of people are against this, if they come to that decision, what would the next steps be? Nothing happens fast in the city. Everything takes a long time. There's a lot of bureaucracy. The only thing that was fast is one morning I got up and these bike lanes were there. So, now it's like, oh, well, we have to wait. We get more plans, but they came upon us very quickly. I don't really think it's appropriate, or I mean, if you have questions, I can explain why they're horrible, and we've talked about that a lot, but it's just never been vetted, and I'd really love to know if the community board could be our advocate. First, we have to all find a consensus that, you share my belief and the belief of everyone I've heard speak, but I'd really like to know procedurally how you guys could help, what the next steps are, because we've really been just stonewalled so far. Thank you.
I think I understand. They put in you're talking slightly different subject than what Colleen was referring to in Central Park. This is the 61st and 62nd Street bike lanes you were talking about. And what happened was those were put in temporarily, as you said. We did have a discussion at the board where it was presented. And this is a temporary thing. They want to make something permanent. And I think the question is whether they go forward with something like this or there can be changes. And I think that's a discussion that we need to have with the DOT and with the bike people. And I think we're going to have that before, hopefully, before they make any decisions on how a permanent bike lane would work.
That Chuck is absolutely right, Josh. Before we make a decision to make this permanent, we'll have to come before the community board to give a presentation on this.
We're dealing with the repercussions with this temporary measure. And I think, when this first happened, Colleen, I remember you and I spoke briefly, and I kind of said, what does temporary mean? And, you weren't sure, no one is sure. And I think what I've been told is the plan is temporary to permanent. It's not temporary to get rid of it. And out of just a simple question, if the community board does a resolution and say we are against these bike lanes, what does that mean? Can the DO say, well, thanks, we don't care? I mean, what does that actually mean? If someone could enlighten me, I'd appreciate it.
Let me speak to that, Josh. We're an advisory board, and all the agencies can take our recommendation or not. In the end, it's up to them. But I will say, well, we've had a good working relationship with the DOT, and certain times they don't take our recommendations, but other times they do. So, and I think it's a question of depending on what it is. And I think the way I understand it, and Colleen can correct me, is that, DOT is anxious to set up a system where you can have a continuous bike path or lane that goes, let's say, across the bridges at 59th Street, the Koch Bridge, goes through our area and through Central Park and across to the west side. That's their overall plan. And so the question is, how do you do that? And I think that's what these lanes are a piece of. So, but the question is whether it makes sense to do it here or whether there's other places to do it. And I think that's the discussion. Yeah. And while we can't guarantee what's going to happen, I think, the DOT has worked with us on these kinds of things. And so I think it's to be determined.
Have a special session just on this topic so we don't inundate the rest of the committee with this on each.
Yes, probably. Yes, Josh. I think we probably will do that because I know that there were a lot of people. The last time we had a discussion on this, there were quite a few people. And I think our record for our committee hearing on the Zoom meeting, I saw the number and I couldn't believe it, but I think that I think it probably will pay to have a hearing on this because there's so much interest in the community about this. But thank you.
I appreciate all your efforts. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Thank you.
Evelyn David, I believe, is next. Can we unmute Evelyn?
Evelyn, it's *6 to unmute on the phone.
Oh, on the phone.
Okay. I did. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for this discussion on the bike lanes. I get so depressed, and then all of a sudden you're talking about it again, and I'm like, oh, please get rid of these things. The doorman today said to me, they're just temporary. And I looked at him and I said, uh-huh. Okay, so anyway, there's nobody in the neighborhood I know that thinks this is a good idea. The traffic is backing up more and more and more on 62nd Street because that traffic goes straight down to the FDR. And this is between Park and Lex, it's starting now. Okay, so 61st Street from FDR is already backing up. it's impossible. Okay, so we will have discussions later, hopefully. There's another issue that I want to address, if you don't mind, if Colleen could. At last meeting, she said something about the signage was going to be changed. You changed the signage on between Lex and Park and between Park and 3rd on 62nd Street from no parking, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Is there any way it can be rechanged? I mean, is that an impossible request? Because all of us in the neighborhood who have to leave to go to work now are really under the gun, have to be in the car at 7 because they're giving tickets everywhere. So, I mean, that's an issue that is, any answer to that? And I thought last meeting you said the signage was going to be changed back.
Colleen?
No, I didn't say that the signage was going to be changed. I put my email in the chat. Can you send me the segments of where the signages were changed? Let me look into it.
Oh, I don't actually have video. I'm on the phone, so.
I don't need a video. Just send me an email of where the signs were changed.
I know, but I don't know your email address. Or I'll call Will. I'll get it from Will. If you rather. The signage was changed on 62nd Street between Lex and Park and between Lex and 3rd.
I have
from 7 a.m. Okay. It used to be no parking, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. So you could get your stuff together, get out of the house, get in their car, and go where you had to go. Because school starts at 8 or 8:30, right? But now it's 7. Now you have to. Now it's no parking from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So that makes us get up at 4 and get out of there by 7. It's insane. It's just one thing after the other has made COVID life, pretty unbearable.
If memory serves me correct, the signage was changed because of the bike lane to allow for the ease of the flow of traffic on that segment. But I will.
Okay, that's doing nothing. First of all, I need to really pound on this 2 more seconds, and I'm sorry about this, but I saw 3 bikes in all of today. All right, so the bike lanes are really not being used, and also I don't see what difference it makes. I guess they do whatever they feel like. I don't know. It's just really inconvenient, really stressful. And if you can do anything about it, we really would appreciate that. Okay.
Thank you, Evelyn. Colleen.
Yes.
Look into it. So.
Yeah, I'll be in touch with Evelyn.
Okay, great. Paula Bernstein, can we unmute Paula?
Hi. Appreciate it. I'm representing Chef David Burke with our flagship restaurant, David Burke Tavern, which is located on 62nd Street between Lexington and Park Avenues, which it sounds like we've been talking quite a bit about. As everybody knows, obviously, we are the only restaurant on that street right now. And given the COVID restrictions, we were given the ability to move into the street for outdoor dining since we can only have 25% capacity inside the building. And as soon as we were able to do that, we had about 3 weeks of outdoor dining and suddenly we were shut down because of the bike lane. I have no idea because we're sort of coming into this late. We didn't even know it was happening. And I don't know what our capabilities are to have that removed. It sounds like there's a lot of other problems happening as well. Obviously, we do have a lot of elderly people who want to walk in the street and come to us and they can't. They have no room on the sidewalk with having diners on there on our street. So it gets really congested. And of course, just being able to have guests park on the street. We have guests coming in from the tri-state area all the time to come to our flagship. There's just no place to park anymore. So again, I kind of echo what we've heard a lot of today, which is that, with COVID, adding this is just totally, it's like adding salt to, a really open sore wound. So I just want to make sure that if, our voice is heard, and we will do whatever we can possible to have this rectified so that we can get rid of that bike lane, which is frankly not and I've stood out there many, many times over the last, several weeks. Nobody's using the bike lane. As a matter of fact, people are parking their cars in it.
Thank you. Thank you, Paula. I know that when we had the earlier discussion about the temporary lanes, there were some restaurants that said they might cause issues, and the DOT talked to them and they were going to try to work that out. I don't know if your client was one of them, but that's we'll get that all in the mix.
Yeah, and I can reach out to you, Paula, offline if you want to share with me your best number where I can reach you tomorrow.
Yeah. You want it now, or you want me to do it in the chat?
Give it to me now. That'll be fine.
Okay, 516.
Okay.
635.
Mm-hmm.
298. And Chef Burke does send his regards. He was able to be on earlier, but we didn't realize it was going to run this late. So that is why I'm here. I am his Vice President of Marketing Communications.
I'm sorry, you said 635. What are the last four digits?
Sorry, 6298.
6298. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And who is speaking? I'm sorry.
It's Colleen. I will give you a call tomorrow.
That's great. I appreciate it. Thank you.
She's our DOT liaison, Paula. She's the one that goes back to the department and talks to them about the issues that we raised.
Yeah. Thanks, Paula.
Okay, so we have next someone by the name of Cos Spagnoletti. Oh, wait a second. No, I want to take Louisa first with her iPad because one of the member of the public. Then we'll get to Cos. Is Louisa's? I saw her earlier here. Can we unmute Louisa? I guess she's here.
Yeah, she's trying to unmute from her device, but you just have to click unmute. There you go. You got it.
Okay. Well, I've been listening to everybody's talk about 62nd Street and 61st. I was also present at the last meeting, and we have rallied, many of us, to write letters to you all expressing our problems. And I'm sure DOT is aware of this, but they may not realize the stress it puts us to, because 62nd Street has always been a very challenged street in terms of vehicular traffic because of its direct access to the FDR and the bridge. But what people might not be aware of is that it seems to surge. I mean, that's the only word I can use. And I do have pictures of this because I have stood there somewhere between 3:30 and 4 o'clock. There is a surge of turning traffic from the southbound Park Avenue lane and the northbound Park Avenue lane. And you literally have cars and trucks and whatever piling up at that juncture. And it really has made a material difference in our lives. Just yesterday, just as a particular example, I happened to have to go onto the FDR Drive downtown to the downtown hospital. Now, this is a drive from 62nd Street onto the FDR Drive South, which used to take somewhere around 10 to 12 minutes. And I know this with certitude because my daughter lives on the Lower East Side. So I go on the FDR Drive South all the time. Well, that 10-minute drive now turned into 20 minutes, just going from 62nd and Park to the FDR Drive. This was at 1:30 in the afternoon. It, by the way, only took me 12 minutes to get down to Brooklyn Bridge. So the going across town is really a big problem. The other thing is that I'm not sure if this is well known, but 62nd Street is at least 5 feet narrower than 61st. And I have pictures on 61st of the passing lane existing, so that if there's double parking, there is still room for westbound vehicular traffic. We do not have that luxury on 62nd Street. So for all of those reasons, I'm not even mentioning the noise, et cetera, I think the snarling of the traffic is a huge problem.
Thank you, Louisa. This is what, obviously we're going to take this up, and we've had discussions and we'll have further discussions on this. But
will there be any opportunity for the public, such as people like ourselves,
yes,
participate in these studies?
Of course. Okay. That's what we're here for. We're
okay.
here to give the public an opportunity to participate, and we're happy to have you participate.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now, let me get back to someone by the name of Cos Spagnoletti.
I don't know who that is.
I don't know either, but why don't we unmute him and give him a try?
Oh, I'm unmuted. Can you hear?
Yes, of course.
Good. I'm not sure if this is old business, new business, or anything in between.
Monkey
but
business probably, but go ahead.
As far as the DOT and the outdoor dining, we all know that everybody is building these permanent structures on the street. There's some permanent structures being built on the sidewalk. There's few places that 2 or 3 feet of basically for pedestrians to walk on the sidewalk. Should this be, I'm not sure if Colleen can answer anything tonight, but maybe we should have a joint with DOT, Street Life and Small Business, because this is getting very serious. Everybody's spending thousands of dollars on, building indoor on the street, and parking spaces are disappearing. Traffic is being inundated. It's what is going on, and there's no enforcement. I mean, all DOT has to do is drive up and down the avenues, and they could find thousands of violations because people are taking advantage of it. There's some very respectable, good people that do not take advantage, but there are some that it's, what is DOT doing about it?
I don't know if Colleen wants to reply to that.
It's something that is getting frustrating to everybody.
Hey, Tom, I know you. So, I mean, listen, we have our inspectors. We also have other inspectors from various agencies that's helping us with the enforcement. If you see or if you notice a particular restaurant that's building a structure that doesn't look like it's kosher or it's not in compliance, let Will know or email me, and I can have an inspector go out there and we'll inspect the site to make sure that if it's in compliance, it is. If not, we will issue a cease and desist and have them remove the structure. Now, it's not to say that the restaurant owners don't know what they're supposed to do. They do know, because there are specific guidelines showing renderings of what the structure should be and the build out, how many feet they have to be, clearance for pedestrians passage and so forth, and what's required with the barricades. And you're right, there are going to be some bad actors out there who are going to take it upon themselves to do what they want to do. And you might feel like it's a wild, wild west. But at the same time, we do have enforcement, and we do have folks that's going out there and inspecting the sites. So if you do see something, just let Will know, give Will the address or the quarter, and we'll go out there and we'll inspect the locations, okay?
Yeah, but I'm not going to, I'm not the policeman on this. And all
You're not,
DOT,
but if you know of a restaurant, if you know of a location, let us know.
I don't feel comfortable doing that, but as the inspectors are going down and the NYPD is driving up and down the avenues, all they have to do is look, and they can see what's required and what's legal and what's not. And admittedly, all the restaurants know what it is that they should do, but even though the majority or everybody knows what it should be, a lot of them are going just beyond or even further than crossing the legal line. Not so much the legal, but the line that they shouldn't. Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
again, maybe this should be brought up at a joint 3 triumvirate meeting.
Well, Cost, I don't know if Cost, if you remember that at our last meeting, we had a discussion of this when we were talking about outdoor dining and things like that. And we had people from DOT who were in charge of these programs. And they said that, you have to do them in a certain way, that it has to be open to a certain extent. And I think now that we're getting into the winter, I'm sure there's going to be the feeling that people want to enclose it, which goes against what it is. So you can't you don't want them creating indoor dining outdoors. And I think
there's not supposed to be any
right
closure,
right,
full closure.
Okay. Right, but they're supposed to, but I'm sure a lot of them aren't doing that. If we have to have a further hearing on that, with, as you suggested, we can have some of our with some of our other committees, we can look at that and they will do
But
that.
all you have to do is walk around and what they're classifying, yeah, it's supposed to be 50% open. But you walk around and as you're driving and walking, they're fully enclosed. So that makes it an indoor dining, which is now the 25%. And
Right.
what are you going to take? 25% of what?
And again, it's important to know the establishments who are doing this because, you know, I cannot stress that enough that we will go out there and do the enforcement.
Okay, all right, Costa. I think we'll, you know, this is something we may have to take up at some point again. But
I think Valerie's waving her hand.
On this issue?
I'm not sure. I see her waving.
She says yes.
Okay, she says yes. All right, why don't we recognize
Thanks,
Valerie
John.
on this
Yeah.
issue? Go
Thanks. I mean, I want to, this was a subject that I had raised my hand even before Kaz brought it up. I completely agree with everything he is saying. I mean, Colleen, you're saying like, if we report somebody, then you're going to come up and take a look. I mean, it is a massive, massive non-compliance in all ways. And, you know, every minute of every day, these structures are being built on the sidewalk, in the street, everywhere. And these restaurant people are spending a lot of money doing it. And, you know, it's like anything else. You need to have these enforcement people out there as a deterrent to be putting these things up. And it shouldn't be, as Kaz says, we should not have to be the police here. I mean, you know, 2nd Avenue, 1st Avenue, you know that there are tons of restaurants around here. You know, I don't want to press you, but I'd like to know the last time an enforcement officer came up here. I mean, the sidewalks are disappearing. And one of the concerns I have, and this was something I was going to ask, we need to look at, with the mayor saying that these structures and everything can stay out there for a really long time. I don't know how we're going to get our sidewalks back after all of these restaurant people, and I know they're struggling mightily, and I want to support them. Once they put all this up, I don't see how we're going to get our sidewalks back and our streets back. And to that end, I was going to ask you, how much money is New York City losing every single day that we don't have parking going on? I mean, that has to be a big revenue source that we're losing out on. And, you know, we have to be balancing. But again, I just don't see what is the plan going to be to literally take the sidewalk back? Because when you say the restaurant owners know how much sidewalk to leave, you know, when you have a bike rack, a city bike rack, one of the circles, there's like less than 3 feet sometimes for people to walk through. If you're on Lexington Avenue, there's one street, and I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, where you're literally walking in between tables and you can touch a table on each side as you walk down the sidewalk. And you know, it's been like that since July. So I don't know how many enforcement officers you have going around, but it's not enough. And I agree, we need to take this up as an issue with small business transportation and street life, but it's getting worse, not better. And these structures are really enclosed now with the inclement weather. And I don't see any enforcement at all.
All right, well, why don't we, this is something, thank you, Valerie. This is something that we'll probably have to take up with our fellow committees.
Chuck, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to go to Colleen's defense that like people have called our office. We have raised several locations with DOT and with DOB, and they have gone out. They have issued violations. They have issued correction notices, and DOB has issued oath summonses. So, I mean, I always tell constituents who call our office, the city relies on people in the community to raise concerns so that we know that there's a problem. And I do it myself in my own community where I live, but like we need to be a part of, yes, we don't want to be the police, but like if this is a problem, and it is, we should call 311 ourselves, and we should also, you know, send me the locations, and I'll happily raise them with Colleen, because she's done a great job so far being on top of this. And so I just want to defend Colleen in, you know, as a colleague in government, that she's been doing a great job making sure these are addressed.
Thanks, Will. Appreciate that.
Rita, why don't we unmute Rita Popper? Rita looks next here.
I do have an update on James Cagney Place, but before I do that, I'd like to thank Colleen and Chuck and Craig, who have been tireless for, and it's almost 2 years, and the insurance company has canceled their insurance. And so therefore there'll be no more community events. We had 5 a year, including movies and sing-alongs, and people are calling now asking whether the holiday sing will take place. But, you know, during this pandemic, it's not such a bad thing, but nobody seems to be screaming about the bike lane that doesn't go up. And now the bikers are going up, and delivery guys on electric mopeds are going up the sidewalk because they don't want to dismount and go around the obstruction. So hopefully it'll get fixed. If it gets fixed, we get our insurance back. Without insurance, we can't take a chance of having the public come and fall. So thank you all for your help. Let's see, maybe we can settle this in 2021.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rita. I think we will. Michelle Birnbaum, can we unmute?
Yes, hi, thank you. With reference to the outdoor dining, I actually had sent Chuck and Craig and the zoning committee, and I CC'd Will. I sent an email around today, attached to which was an article about CB2's reaction to this outdoor dining. And Will, if you have that, I wonder if you could send that around, since you have the whole board list, because everybody should see this. We here in Community Board 8, I don't think we took appropriate, not necessarily action, but we did not have a full and appropriate discussion on this issue. It wasn't a matter of whether or not there's enforcement, that's one issue, but the whole program was never really considered by us as the pros, the cons, and whether or not we actually support it. It was never considered with the zoning committee. This is a very, very big zoning issue. A lot of these places that are putting in outdoor dining, they are not zoned for outdoor dining. Ordinarily, they would be fined for putting anything on the street. And what does this say about those people who are zoned with outdoor dining and also have paid for that in some way, that now everybody's got that benefit? I think that we need a thorough and complete discussion of this entire program with the zoning committee, the small business committee, and transportation. But we have not given this whole program its just desserts. We have not discussed it. We were told that it was permanent. We all said, oh, well, now it's permanent. It was supposed to be temporary. Then it was supposed to go through the pandemic. Now we have vaccines. Hopefully everybody will be vaccinated by next summer or so. And we still are going to have this. It is a visual blight because there's no conformity with what people are putting up. And if you drive up and down the streets, it looks like a shanty town. It's a visual blight. It's an obstruction of the sidewalks. It's everything. I mean, it benefits that one business. It really doesn't benefit anybody else. You can't say that the rest of the community at large is very much benefited by this. It's taken the parking away. It's taken the revenue away, as Valerie says. That's just a small part of it. If we don't have zoning, We don't have anything. The city will be chaos. And at one of our last meetings, we had a representative here from the city, and I was last week. I don't remember which meeting it was. Oh, it was at wasn't it the Municipal Arts Society? For those of you who were on that Zoom, when I actually asked the question, and there was no answer. When I asked the question about zoning and enforcement and what will happen to zoning, and will it be completely disrupted, whatever, they said, well, they really haven't worked that out yet. Well, you know what? If Will gave me a thumbs up, so he's going to send around the CB2 article. I suggest everybody read it. It will raise a lot of issues. This is happening. They still don't have a lot of answers, and we as a board have not taken this up to the full extent that we should have. So I'm asking, I wrote to zoning today, and I wrote to Chuck and Craig today, so they know about this. So I'm asking you all to get together and please set up a joint meeting with just this as a topic, not when this comes, and then we can have the public come as well and address it. Not when this comes as number 4 on the agenda and we have 3 minutes less. It's left to the meeting. It's very serious. So I would appreciate it if you would agree to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. As we said, we'll certainly look at doing something on this. Craig, you wanted to comment on, I don't know about this or something else?
Yeah, I just wanted to, I guess, before I say what I was going to say, I just wanted to, I think, speak generally to this whole issue and even relating it to the bike lanes. Yes, this has been a really difficult period for everyone in trying to adapt to these emergency changes to the streets and the streetscape in order to accommodate businesses or bikers, whatever it may be. I just want to try to bring us back to the fact that there are so many severe impacts that everyone is feeling as a result of this pandemic. And it just hurts me a little to think about the pain that so many business owners are going through, or even the lives that have been lost throughout this pandemic. And I just hope that we can all just live a little longer. I know we're all dealing exhaustion, fatigue from whether it be Zoom meetings or being stuck inside and everything. But I would just hope that we can just be able to endure a little longer and endure that these changes that may not be appealing to everyone, but are really helping some people who otherwise this is their lifeline to being able to live their lives. And we've seen too many lives lost to lose the fact that we need to make sure that the vitality of people's lives that we can assist are able to be assisted. I think my concern in terms of the outdoor dining, which I'm not clear about, and this is my question for Colleen, she even knows the answer to this, but I have a feeling, and this is my suspicion, that I'm sure Colleen has been very responsive, and I'm sure DOT has been trying to be as responsive as possible. I see, at least on the Open Restaurants website, a real detailed a set of guidelines for what restaurants need to do in order to be able to set up structures manner. And that's really what I'm most concerned about. It's the safety aspect. It's the fact that these restaurants are setting up spaces that are essentially mostly enclosed, and that people, whether knowingly or unknowingly, are exposing themselves potentially to the virus because they may have this conception that outdoor dining is safe if there's even some airflow in there, but not enough, because the airflow basically can be going in and just spreading germs all around. So I guess my question for DOT is, can you spell out the guidelines more explicitly so that restaurants know what the rules are? Because I have a feeling, as I think everyone's alluded to, you don't have to go far to find places that appear to be non-conforming, but I don't know that they're non-conforming or if they're just following the guidelines and taking the liberties that the guidelines that seem to exist perhaps allow them to do because they don't see any restrictions in place. So maybe it's a matter of being more explicit in terms of what is and impermissible, so restaurants can bend the rules based on what's currently posted.
Yeah, I've looked at the guidelines, we've reviewed the guidelines, and I think the guidelines are very specific in details. I mean, I've had some restaurant owners who personally contacted me and even our staffers and have submitted their, designs and ask us, hey, is this okay? Can we do this? And, we were more than happy to accommodate them and give them our feedback on what they were thinking of putting up their structure. So, I think a lot of restaurant owners feel comfortable calling us as well to get that additional feedback, and which is what we have been doing before they go out there and construct these structures that are thousands of dollars and come to find out it's illegal and they have to remove it and they've spent so much money. The guidelines are there, and I really think that they're—
Where does it actually—
I'm sorry?
Where does it actually say that you must keep two sides open and exposed?
I have to look at it. I have to go back on our website and take a look at it.
Yeah, I don't see it there. And
I
won't, yeah. I don't see it there.
Modified guidelines, yeah. Go ahead.
I won't eat it in and out in general, just because I'm worried about virus transmission. But especially I cringe whenever I walk down the streets and see all these places that seem to be mostly enclosed just for that reason. And I'm one who isn't as bothered by the change of the streetscape. I'm more concerned about health.
No, I agree with Craig in that, certainly. Okay, Alita Camp, I think Alita wanted to be recognized, I believe. Alita?
I do. Thank you, Craig. Thank you, Chuck. Sorry about that. I'm concerned about a couple of things. One is the extent of these indoor buildings. I just emailed you, Colleen, a building with steel framing going up as an outdoor dining spot on Lexington, which suggests that they have no intention to keep things as open or as temporary as might be necessary. I talked a lot about the snow. There's the city revenue, which other people have raised. But I'm also concerned about the lack of fairness to the businesses that are not fortuitously located. So if you're going to look into this, and that it's been all done without community input and very hastily and without considering the ancillary impact seems of opening and having this street dining and then moving to make it permanent again without the opportunity for input. And I think told really early on that we were not going to be able to have any input into this, and it was all going to be decisions made by the administration. But for restaurants, and we'd like to see all restaurants thrive, for restaurants that are next to a bus stop, a bike lane, a bus, city bike, and I know that there have been conflicts with city bike, and it stands, they don't have the same opportunities. And it seems wildly unfair when the city is giving away the use of the sidewalk, the use of the street, no fees, nothing, and little enforcement to have what it amounts to a penalty for the restaurants that are not located near those spots. And I personally would like to see the DOT work and help these restaurants find locations close by or help negotiate. I know you don't, but the SBA might, or some other financial entity of the government might be able to help negotiate with landlords of these spaces to have the space available for restaurants that may not be proximate, but maybe somewhere close by so that they could use space. I'm also really worried about what happens with propane heaters in these kinds of very enclosed outdoor spaces that are outdoor in name only. And does the propane emit any kind of toxic fumes, or does the enclosure make it more dangerous to be using those giant heaters when there are not enough open spaces? So thank you very much. And thanks, Chuck.
Sure. Yeah, those are all issues I think that need to be considered as this program, both the mayor and the council said it was going to be extended, for a while here. So I think we need to get to the bottom of some of that stuff. And DOT said they were willing to discuss this with us. So I think that's what we're going to have to do, set up some kind of a hearing and get them in and talk over a lot of these issues. Marco, I see Marco Tamayo. Can we unmute Marco?
Thank you. Talking about the guidelines, I saw the guidelines when they came out, and then immediately I decided to talk with the leader, and I asked the permission to go to all the restaurants of starting from York, First, Second, and Third Avenue, and some section of Lexington. And I went to spoke to each restaurant. Most of them was manager, and a few of them was the owners, explaining how to follow the regulations of DOT. So the DOT is clear. The only problem what I perceive right here is DOT is unwilling to enforce what they create. And they supposed to go, and I agree with Cos. Personally, myself, I never ever like to complain in any building or any condition myself to either to 311 or to DOB, all of them. I don't want to do that because I think that is not our role to police nobody over there. So my point is the lack of enforcement of DOT. I think that is the problem. You can go outside. As soon as you go outside in a block, you can find 2 or 3 violators or more. So we basically you don't need complaints. You gotta go outside and you can keep putting violation behind to another violation. Because if you put violation, they're gonna stop to build this huge structure that are completely with serious structural problems. I mentioned the other day the snow. I know, but somebody said, I think it was for one of the agencies, said, oh, when the truck will come to remove the snow, and if it's right there, they're gonna remove with everything. I mean, that is sad, but it's true, and that I think is right. But the problem is the restaurants, they know the regulations. I personally myself, I said, yes, they know that because I talked to them personally. But the problem is no enforcement. If there is no enforcement, they see one is doing something, the other follow. And DOT, they don't enforce what they did. And I think the concept, what they did was great with a few mistakes, but it was great. And now I'm seeing proliferated everywhere, this structure. Like Cos mentioned very well, I don't want to go inside because I don't want to repeat that. So yes, it is true. Another problem is the zoning. But personally, myself, I don't want to raise this issue right now at this level because we are still in the pandemic. Once it comes the solution, then we have to start discussing seriously the part that we have to, or probably we have to pass a resolution as soon as the vaccine is available, and they have probably 2 or 3 months. That's the period that they have to remove all the structures completely. And the problem will say they're going to complain that we put a lot of money in this structure. That means that this business apparently either the money that came from the government they put over there to waste the money, or they're doing a very good business even in pandemic time. Of course, they have to do in good time because everybody needs to eat and everybody has to order the food. So even though they are closed, there is other kind of the service that they offer to the community, which are grateful, by the way. So this is my point. My point is enforcement, enforcement, enforcement. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. I think we all know that there are issues, and the question is how do we deal with it as it goes forward? And I think that's what we're going to look into, and we're going to get with DOT and see what we can discuss and see how things are going to move forward. And Craig, I know, why don't we give the last word to Craig here?
I just want to follow up on what I was saying, and we'll post it, I believe, in the public chat. Some of the on the Open Restaurants website talk about open walls and sidewalls. So in fact, it talks about sidewalls being open, but that is in order to operate as an outdoor space. It doesn't say that 3 sidewalls are not permitted. It just says that if so, then occupancy limits will be capped at 25% and essentially function as indoor seating. So my understanding is, at least my interpretation, is that the guidance doesn't prevent these types of structures from being built. It just would mean that you'd have to, the only enforcement would be in terms of the number of people seated there as opposed to how they are built in most instances.
Craig, that's to my mind as a prescription for violations that are never going to be really looked at. I mean, I know that they look at violations, but it's going to be, but if you say, all right, we can have the 3 side walls, but you can't have more than 25%. That's really difficult. As we found over the years in transportation, we found that, enforcement is a tricky thing, and you can't count on it to make things permanently changed, even though, and so you have to look at designing, if it's parking, making the regulations such that they'll handle the situation, or if it's something like this, making the guidelines in ways that don't look like they're easy to get away with. And that's what this looks like to me, just as looking at it, with my lawyer hat on. But anyway, I think on those that we need have to schedule, talk, and we'll have to schedule something, I think, with the other committees, and get DOT and start talking about what this thing's going to really look like, if this, how far is it going to go on, and what's going to happen here. But I think at this point, we've probably, unless there's anybody who has anything that they're dying to say, and because I think we're about ready to adjourn. I see that Patrick Bobelin has a hand up, and Rebecca Dangor has her hand up. So in keeping with our general procedures, we'll hear from them. So why don't we unmute Patrick, sorry.
Thanks so much, Chuck. And thanks, everybody. I'll keep it brief because I know we're over time, but it is nice to see some of your faces. Hi, Rita. I haven't seen you in a million years. I'm calling about the open streets. I wanted to talk about the open streets program. I talked a little bit with Craig about this. So I think it was a Kalos initiative that dropped those barriers on East End Avenue. But for them to be maintained, according to the open streets program, from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., in every other community, it requires a sponsor group to make sure that they're replaced. And so we have no sponsor officially at the East End location. And so no one moves the barriers back when they get moved around, even though there's safety officers up and down the street, no one's moving those barriers back. So I talked a little bit to Craig about making it permanent. I also talked to Patrick McCluskey, the executive director of the Carl Schurz Park Conservancy. And he said he would talk to the board if we put together a plan. So I'm in the early stages of the process. My goal is just to improve safety. I don't know if anybody's walked up and down, but it gets a little hairy there. I've seen cars treating it more like a obstacle course than, a place to slow down. I see a lot of parents with kids running up and down, and just, cars, not abiding by that tiny sign that says 5 miles per hour. So I wanted to talk to DOT. I have to call DOT. Maybe I could link up with Colleen after this, or maybe tomorrow, to talk about traffic calming options, because, basically my plan in talking to Patrick McCluskey was that, if we instated some traffic calming measures that people abided by and seemed cool with the community, knowing that there may not be budget for like a permanent shutdown, a permanent thing, but some inexpensive traffic calming measures could get the community to sort of vibe with this open space. And given we're going to see another COVID spike, it would be nice to have a little bit more open pedestrian space. And so, hope maybe in the future this could be, a resolution to extend the open streets program to support pedestrianization. I don't know what the process would be so far. Again, I'm very early in it, but I had a great conversation with Billy, with Craig, with Patrick. I would love to talk to Colleen and see what could be put together. In my wildest dreams, you shut the whole thing down, but I know that's not going to vibe for everybody. So, you know, maybe we can get half of the street for pedestrians alongside the park. The Parks Conservancy, you know, Patrick said he'd talk to the Parks Conservancy about it. So it seemed like a possibility for once. So I don't know where we go from here.
Well, Patrick, we certainly would encourage you to explore that. And if you want to come back to the committee and have us, you know, look at something, that'd be great. And I think talking to Colleen and some of the other people would be helpful.
Sure, Patrick. I mean, we can have a conversation about the open street and the guidelines and what you need to do, what the next steps are.
Awesome. Can I chat you my number?
Sure.
Awesome. I'd love to talk to you when you get a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Rebecca Dangor. Rebecca, can we unmute Rebecca Dangor?
I was just going to make a motion to adjourn, but I think Alita's
so
hand is
fun.
up.
We're having so much fun, but I think that's very appropriate. So I think, Alita, did you want to
I do, just really little, and I know you're in really great spirits tonight, Chuck, so I don't want to put a damper on them. This is really for Colleen. Colleen, I urge so much for DOT and sanitation to do what we can for 91st Street, James Cagney Way. It is a resource for the neighborhood. It is the only street we have like this. To lose, once we get the vaccine and the pandemic ends and the virus goes away, to lose that as a resource for the public would just be a bad thing. So I know you've worked hard on it. There must be a way for the city to fix this problem. So that's my last request, is a great big urge. Please, please see what you can do. There's got to be a way. Thank you. Thank you so much, Chuck. And thank you so much, Craig. And thank you, Colleen.
Thank you. We'll try to figure that out.
Yes, I think
Thank you.
I think we will, Alita, definitely. So
thank you.
So I think we are adjourned, and I want to thank everyone for their attendance and their interest, and to be continued in the new year at our next, which will be our next meeting, the first Wednesday in January. Okay, take care. We'll see some of you at board members.